Well, we are here. Welcome, everyone, live here from the Grey Cup. We're here in Vancouver. I got Jason and Andy here. Evan, we'll touch with all that. Let me set the stage here. Live today, Media Row, Grey Cup 111 in Vancouver, downtown. Please like and subscribe. Huge guest list today. You guys know we do this every year. I got Mike Hogan already standing by with the Argonauts. Dave Naylor's coming by. We've got Serritella. We've got Pedersen. A lot of activity here. I think my mic's okay. Everyone let me know if it sounds weird. Andy and Evan, we had a couple of mimosas at breakfast here. We got Andy and Jason here. Evan was supposed to be here en route. He will be flying here. We'll see him tonight. Jason, Andy, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing good, Reed. It's great to be here at Grey Cup once again, and ready for a great show.
Yeah, Abdul already asking, how many times have you guys been on the slide behind you? Not yet, but you see family fun activities here. We'll set the stage. A lot of activities here before we bring our first guest in. Andy flew in last night. Andy and I, we spent time at the team headquarters. Dorothy standing by here, and Jason's girlfriend as well. Andy, are you having fun in Vancouver?
I have to say, I never thought I'd be broadcasting in front of a obstacle course, but, there's a first time for everything, right? I absolutely love being here. Been wanting to come to Vancouver all my life. I'm excited to be here and to be here for such a fantastic event. I love this festival.
Yeah, so like I said, so set the stage, kind of fluid today. Everyone knows I posted the guest list already. A lot of activity here. We got Evan, Jason and Andy here. Mike Hogan's coming by, Darrell Davis, Dan Ralph. Whole list, fluid. We'll see what we do. Jim Mullin stopping by. We finally got Naylor scheduled. So if you're watching this after the fact, I'll put time codes on so you can jump around. Baker's standing by. But it should be fun today. A little fluid. We'll be here for about 2.5 hours. So hope you guys enjoy. Jason, you guys were walking around today. A lot of activities. Rainy today. It was sunny yesterday. But we got zip lines. We got the family fun center here. What do you... Pretty spectacular. I know we were in your hometown last year for Hamilton.
Yeah, it's definitely a step up from Hamilton last year. One thing that stands out, and me and Andy were talking before the show, is the amount of zip lines. They got a couple zip lines down here inside, and then outside in the rain, you got a couple down there across the harbor. And it's a really cool experience just seeing everybody out. It's been a great turnout so far. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the rest of the weekend goes.
Andy, we went through the team headquarters last night. We were at the Atlantic Schooners. We were at the BC Lions Den. We went over to a lot of alcohol was consumed. Did you have fun? What did you make? Team headquarters, your first time. It was like Rick Campbell walking around. I think we'll talk about that today. Rick Campbell's future. We saw Neil McAvoy. Thoughts on what you've seen so far?
Well, first of all, to Jason's point, where's our zip line? How come we don't have one coming down to the booth? We couldn't get that.
Yeah, bring the guest in. Bring Mike Hogan in with the zip line. That would be. I would like to see that.
Yeah, but no. Really lovely city, just a lot of activity. Again, just the throngs of people that I've seen in the last 24 hours and all the different jerseys. Like I said, I don't think I've really been quite to an event like this. I've been to a lot of conventions for a lot of different other niches, sports related. I don't think I've quite seen the camaraderie like I've seen here with all the different fans, the different jerseys, the different kinds of people. I cannot count on my hand the number of times that someone said hello to you and Dorothy last night. I mean, just streams of people. I mean, random people that I think I try to keep up with, your whole media exposures and everybody you talk to in the Canadian media sphere. But I did not expect all the fans that said hello to you last night. I was really taken aback by that. And that's really just a really warm feeling to have in an otherwise cold and rainy city. Yeah, that's the beauty of Grey Cup, man.
No, it's really been nice. And just even to set the stage here, there's two halves to this convention center. This is totally unique this year to BC. We're at the McLaren Grills Auto Row here, Media Row. I'll give that plug sponsor here when we bring in Mike Hogan. But they've put all this on. There's field goal kicking. There's bouncy houses. There's an indoor zip line. There's outdoor zip line. Compared even to last year in Hamilton, and I'll tell you, the team parties last year in Hamilton were really spectacular. But just a lot more this year. I think Amar Doman and the rest of BC, right? I mean, Jason, can you speak to that? And you've been to obviously more Grey Cups than Andy and I have. Just the breadth of activities we have going on.
Yeah, I think just like the way I would describe it is they spared no expense for this Grey Cup. I mean, look at the halftime show what they got for Sunday. I'm sure Jonas Brothers weren't cheap. There's just so much to do, and it really feels like when you walk around. We took the train here from our Airbnb, just seeing the advertising and the presence of the Lions and the Grey Cup Festival this week in Vancouver. It's really a special time, and this is actually my first time going to Vancouver, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I see Jamie Nice here already. He's not on for a little bit. Jamie Nice standing by. Should be fun here. Maybe Dorothy can start getting Mike Hogan over here. If she's paying attention, we'll bring him on in a minute. Like I said, like and subscribe. Get us over 4,000 subscribers. Trying to give away. I saw Dustin with Royal Retros last night. He was at the CFL PA party we went by. Andrew Pearson was there. A lot of CFL players, friends of the show. But Dustin is going to be giving away a custom CFL and UFL jersey to any of our listeners when we get 4,000 subscribers. We'll do a couple of those. But it was nice to catch up with him last night as well, just because, I mean, the last time we saw Dustin, everyone knows Royal Retros if you're into any of this alternative league. That was Birmingham, 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was. 2 years ago, but almost 3 years. Still, the last time we saw him, we were trying to film our setup through a potato, essentially, with how many people were in the area. I remember the stream was really fun. It was great, though, and I love meeting Dustin. Royal Retros is obviously a fantastic just set up with all the different kinds of jerseys and outfits they have on that site. And he was very, very charming last time we got to talk to him, so I'm excited to see him again.
Yeah, so we're going to let's bring in Mike Hogan here. Let's bring in our first guest. We'll get him in talking Argos. I think we're going to have some overlap today, so let's bring in the heavy hitters while we can. Mike Hogan here, ready early. Let's get him situated. We're live from the McLaren Custom Grills Radio Row. We're broadcasting the only officially licensed CFL barbecue grill. To see and purchase grills, go to McLarenCustomGrills.com. And this week only, use the promo code CFL. Get 10% off your McLaren Custom Grills. Really appreciate that. Mike Hogan, first guy I had scheduled for the stream. And then number one on here, we had to have the voice of the Argos on here. Mike, I don't know if it's the matchup maybe we wanted, right, on paper. We got the Argos here, circumstances, Shaq Kelly and everything aside. What is your take on this? I'll hold your mic for it.
I think it's just two really good teams that are playing. If you look over the last 5 years, or at least post-COVID, the Bombers have been the dominant team in the West. The Argos have been to 5 or 4 straight Eastern Conference finals or Eastern Division finals. So I think you've got the two best franchises at this stage. Montreal, Saskatchewan trying to get a little bit closer, but I think these are the two teams that maybe didn't deserve it from start to finish this year, but finished strong at the perfect time.
What do you make of it? Maybe Andy, I have a question after this. What do you make of this? There was so much going in with Chad going obviously into the offseason, going in, sat out, came in, took a while, really was playing excellent, even in the playoff game, obviously gets hurt, right? And then we see Nick Arbuckle come in. Thoughts just with the team? I mean, I have to imagine it's been a roller coaster here, and I just can't imagine what the locker room is feeling at this point.
Yeah, and then the true leader of this team is Winton McManus, and Winton went down. He was on the 6th game as well, so you lose out on the defense. Chad's not in. Brinkman went down for 6 games. There's been so many injuries during the season, yet now everybody's healthy aside from Chad Kelly and Quincy Moshe, of the guys who would play. So it's I think there was 97% availability of players before the Kelly injury, which at this time of the season is stupid. So they've been good at the right time, they've been healthy at the right time, and all the momentum's going in the right direction for Sunday.
Yeah, that actually perfectly leads into my question, which was, what is it that really holds this team together? They've gone through so much strife, as you alluded to, injuries, players leaving in free agency, quarterbacks. It's McManus, and then any other particular players or coaches that have really held this team together?
The coaches really are businesslike, very professional, and the goal is always 1-0. They don't think, if you went in the middle of August, and aside from Labor Day, you said, who are we playing in 3 weeks? 95% of the guys would have no idea. They know who they're playing that week. And that's been the approach. So it's, okay, this week, Winton's not here. You don't think he's not going to be there for 6 more. But you say, okay, he's not there. What are we going to do to make up for that? And here's our game plan. Here's how we're going to do this. So it comes from Dinwiddie down. And if you want to throw another couple of guys in there, DeVaris Daniels would be top of the list. He's a guy who really assumes a leadership role along with Winton, and on special teams it's Jack Cassar. He's the guy.
I got a question that maybe Jason will have one for you, just to follow up with that. Let's talk Coach Dinwiddie, just being able to manage all of this, right? I know they gave out the Coach of the Year awards and all of that, and obviously kind of spotlighting Corey Mason and everyone else that way, Jason Moss. But just the mentality to be able to do that. We've talked a lot, fans critical of Dinwiddie in the past with the Argos, right? Really has seen nothing but unjustified, right, criticism in that regard. But just for him to be able to kind of manage that, what do you make of that? Then maybe Jason will have follow up.
He's earned the respect of his players, right? So I talked to Nick Arbuckle about leadership role, and he said it starts with Dinwiddie. He said a team takes on the personality of its boss. In this case, the head coach. And Ryan Dinwiddie is hardcore football, 1 week at a time. Here's your assignment. Let's go out and do it. Let's go out and execute. And if we can do that, we should win because the talent's there. Now it's all about the execution. So it trickles down from Ryan.
So what do you got?
So you mentioned the adversity that this team. We had to have
We are in enemy
some
territory.
representation here this week. I mean, obviously. So my question is: so you mentioned the adversity that this team's went through this year, and they're going to be facing the ultimate test of adversity after losing their quarterback last week. So my question is: can Nick Arbuckle, I guess, have his Nick Foles kind of moment in the Grey Cup this week?
There's already been one St. Nick. Why not two, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not like a lot of people have compared this to Dinwiddie's situation when he came in 2007, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he came in, started his first game in a Grey Cup as a backup. Arbuckle has a lot of experience compared to where Dinwiddie was in his career. So this isn't the same thing. This is an experienced backup who became a starter, who became a backup, who became a starter, and is now a starter again.
Mm.
So I don't think there's a guy. In fact, I know there's not a guy in the locker room that doesn't have 1,000% confidence that Nick Arbuckle can get it done on Sunday.
I guess I have a follow-up to that because I was talking, and obviously I do more of this, and you guys are the smart football people, obviously, but the Cameron Dukes wasn't any of that we went immediately to Arbuckle, that was kind of the decision that I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
He initially went to Dukes in the last game of the season. They gave Kelly the night off.
Mm-hmm.
Dukes got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Arbuckle came in and in 3 quarters threw for, I think, 378 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Oh, guess who just won the job? And Cam wasn't 100%. In the next game, Kelly had to come out of the game because he got a helmet-to-helmet on a slide, and then Arbuckle had to go in again. So he's been in 3 straight games due to injury. I can't ever remember that happening. So he got some very much needed reps, and he looked great in the game against Montreal. So all is good. Like it's nobody's got any doubt at all that Nick can get this done.
I got one more, and then we'll go back. Whoever wants. The Chad Kelly, obviously, it's been a story kind of off and on through all of this, right? And even going into the league, and then obviously getting hurt. The interceptions right last year, and all of that, and then all this stuff. I guess. Do you rinse and repeat going into the next season? I mean, whatever happens this in the game and all that, but I just, for Chad here, it's just been so much over the last 3 or 4. I don't know, how do you, what is your advice to him, or what are you looking for? Because I have to imagine you would really have to do a hard stop and kind of okay, we're going forward again now with him as the team, regardless of what happens.
Without sounding trite, he's QB1, right? I mean, he signed a long-term deal for a reason. He was playing as well, if not better, than any quarterback, no disrespect, Bo, at the end of the season. He was lights out. We know what he can do. He's going to be, if he's able to go, and the prognosis is good from what I'm told, they'll reassess it at 12 weeks. He should be ready. I don't know if it's the beginning of the camp. I don't know if it's early in the season, mid-season. But when he's healthy, I assume, unless something radically changes unexpectedly, he's going to be QB1.
I'll give him a follow-up eventually, but I'll toss to Andy here because I want to. What do you got for Mike?
Well, yeah, back on the quarterback conversation, one of the things that was really remarkable to me last year with Montreal beating Winnipeg was Cody Fajardo really kind of transcending past what people had always kind of thought of him. And he really took that last drive and pushed past all the narratives that he ever had and overcame, I think, some demons in that process and winning that game. Do you see Arbuckle having to do something similar where he'll have to transcend as a player tomorrow, or do you think there's going to be a lot more help and more of a committee-by approach in terms of attacking Winnipeg?
If you've got 5 talented receivers and a 1,000-yard running back, use them. If you've got a great offensive line, use it. If you're the coaching staff, you can't do some of the things that Chad Kelly does because nobody else in the league has that arm. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's any doubt they can get it done offensively. It'll just have to be a different way. Mm-hmm. Nick threw some great deep balls in practice this week. So, that's still there. But, is he going to throw that rolled out crossbody dime from 65 yards? I don't know if Nick has that in him, but him throwing deep is not a surprise to anybody.
I got some. You got some first?
Yeah, absolutely. So Winnipeg, obviously a hell of a team, 5 straight Grey Cups. What kind of challenges do you think they present to Toronto tomorrow?
They're a great football team. They have a pedigree quarterback. They've got the outstanding player in the league at running back. They've got a really good offensive line, fantastic receivers. The defense is always in position. They're ball hungry. They have spectacular coaches. Other than that, they don't offer anything. They're just a solid football team. So they're there for a reason. They've been to 5 in a row for a reason. Nobody takes Winnipeg lightly ever. even when they were 0-3 or whatever their record was, 2-6, nobody took them lightly. And they're playing their best football right now. So they're just a great team.
I was making eyeballs, and we got Paul Law Police walking by. So this is kind of, these are the things you get on the radio row here. I just think it's funny, all the back and side. I guess 2 quick questions. So first off, what did you make to Winnipeg's slow start, right? Obviously, it was kind of like, the demon's dead. We don't have to, then somehow Palpatine returned, Star Wars and all that. But what did you make of that slow start? Really felt like they never faltered.
I thought there was a chance that maybe this was Father Time's year, and he is undefeated. Because Collaros is in his mid-30s, Stanley Bryan's in his late 30s, Big Hill, they've got all of these guys who are closer to 40 than 20, right? So at some point, it's got to give. Whatever reason, they captured the Fountain of Youth at mid-season and just lights out after that. So they're there for a reason, and they've got all the experience in the world. You can't say anything badly about the organization. There's not much to say.
One quick one for me, and then we'll toss. We got Darrell Davis standing by. What was your reaction to the injury with Chad Kelly? Now, candidly, we were getting ready for a party. Our sink had clogged. I was running downstairs watching the game. Dorothy goes, "Hey, so I got the CFL Plus laptop on the island. I've got my head under the sink." And I look out, I'm in the group chat. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I had to rewind. What was your reaction real time to that? I think it was Hodge spoiled the news to Farhan, and we kind of heard all this. Where were you at? But just curious your reaction, because it had to be traumatic.
Broadcast booth in Montreal is at about the 20-yard line where he was tackled. He went down head first, dove for the first down, and he got up. Okay, fine. And then he started limping. I went, okay, something happened. And then he went down. I went, did he get that would look like it was an Achilles the way he went down, right? Just with no weight on it. And then when he got up and then sat down again, I didn't see from my angle what had happened to the leg. My color voice did, and he said, "That's not good." And so I never saw the replay of the angle of the injury until I got home. And I went, that's not good. So I knew it was serious, but I didn't know it was like that, other than what Ben Grant had said, because the monitor was closer to him, and I was still trying to survey the field to see what was happening. So I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad.
Anything else from you guys, and then we'll bring in Darrell?
What do you think the biggest key is to winning on Sunday?
Don't shoot yourself in the foot. And that's for both teams. I mean, it's cliche. Win the battles on the line of scrimmage and don't turn the ball over. Ta-da! There's your winner.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Mike Hogan here, voice of the Argos. Thanks for coming by. First one on. We got Darrell Davis coming in here. You guys want to do together? No. Okay, we'll bring in Darrell here. We got Jamie and I saying bye. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Guys, again, like and subscribe here we got Darrell shaking hands with Mike Hogan. Like I said, stacked lineup today. We're rolling through 10, 12 minutes a player or a person here. We got Brian Scott coming on later. We got Dave Naylor. Who are you excited to see today, Jason?
It's always exciting when we get players on the show. So I got to say Brian Scott, especially the unique season that he's had. Really looking forward to asking him some questions, being a part of both of these teams at different points of this season. So I have to go with him.
Yeah, we have Anthony Miller chiming in the chat. That slide in the background is the perfect metaphor to Reed's Washington Commanders after losing 2 straight games and how his BC Lions season would end up all downhill. Thanks, Anthony. Maybe one of these years we'll get Anthony in the Grey Cup. That would be fun. We have Darrell Davis here. Darrell, I sent a lot of messages. Didn't get a lot of emails back, but you're here. It worked out timing-wise. Darrell, how the hell are you?
You sent me emails?
Well, I sent you Twitter messages.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, man. I always DM. I'm doing great. I'm a little soggy. Did you know it rains on the West Coast? I'm from the prairies, man. It doesn't rain much, so this is fun to walk around. I keep hoping I'll grow.
What's your takeaways today here? We thought Sass was going to be here. I wanted Sass to be here. Obviously, falling short. We'll toss to Jason and Andy after that. But what is kind of your thoughts today here? Winnipeg, Toronto, 2022 Redux.
Well, Winnipeg knows how to get here, don't they? The Bombers have played exceptionally well when it's mattered. They started very slowly. The Riders started hot, had a huge skid in the middle when they went 7 games without a win, and then won 4 of their last 5. So I thought they were really hot. The way they beat the BC Lions, they looked to be the team that was going to make it. But Winnipeg in that situation just is so relaxed, does all the right things, and the Rough Riders just under first-year head coach Corey Mace and everything that went with them, they weren't quite at that level. I think they'll be better. Almost nobody wins in their first year coaching a new team. So the Rough Riders next year have a second-year head coach who's gotten better, a guy they believe in, and a lot better roster than they had this year.
Yeah, Andy, I'll ask Corey Mace. Otherwise, if you have a question, what do you got?
Yeah. actually, in regards to Saskatchewan, what's been some of the biggest differences between this team and the team the last 2 years, where they've really faltered down the stretch, but this year obviously kind of holding it together in the late parts of the season?
It's a great question because they are a different team this year. Craig Dickinson last year was we liked Craig Dickinson from afar. Who cares if the media likes him, right? But the players had fallen out of respect for him. He just didn't seem to have the command for the team, and you could see it on the field that they weren't responding to him anymore. Not that he totally lost the locker room, but there was just so much disbelief. The first thing Corey Mace did, and he did not badmouth Craig Dickinson or the preceding regiment before him at all, but he came in and demanded accountability. Remember, Miles Brown got suspended. Deontay Williams got suspended. They were front and center afterwards. They met everybody, said that they apologized to the media, to their teammates, to the fans, to everybody in Saskatchewan. And that's what Corey Mace does. He's accountable to himself, to everybody in the organization, everybody in the province, everybody who follows the football team. And I think that maturity is what made this team way better than it was under Craig Dickinson and under a lot of coaches before that. So that's what he's brought, and that's why I think they can handle the situation, and I think why they're even going to get better going forward.
You got some, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Darrell, first of all, great to have you back on the show after last year. I want to talk about Trevor Harris and the season he had. So, obviously, missed some games again. You know, that's kind of been a theme of him the last couple of years. But if you prorate his stats over the course of a season, I was saying on our show a couple weeks ago, he might have been the MOP of this league, but he's 38 years old. Does he have what it takes to get this team over the hump and into a Grey Cup? And if he's not the quarterback of that team next year, do you see anybody else landing in Saskatchewan?
Oh, that's a huge question. What a package that is. Let's go with 38. He'll be 39 next year. You're right. The way he played at the end of the year was great. The way he played at the start of the year was great, but he's missed 19 games with 2 different knee injuries over the last 2 years. So is he worth it? He's making almost $500,000 a year. The players love him. His teammates love him. The community likes him. The coaches like him. Is there somebody better? Well, at the moment, maybe not. He fit the role so perfectly for a long time, but you have to get younger. You have to get better. You probably have to get cheaper a little bit too. So all the familiar names come out, right? Can they go after Trey Ford? Do they go after Vernon Adams Jr.? Do they go after Davis Alexander? Those are 3 names you just throw out right away. And does that make them better? No, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But it positions them better moving forward in the future, right? So I think that they might like to make a change, or then again, maybe Jeremy O'Day, the general manager, and Corey Mace, the head coach, and Mark Mueller, the offensive coordinator, say, you know what? He's doing a great job. Let's just live with him. But that doesn't set up anything for the future because we saw Shea Patterson, the backup, step in, who was okay, but I don't think he's really a bona fide CFL starting quarterback moving forward.
And that's Shea Patterson. What draft pick was he in the USFL?
He was number 1 overall.
Number one draft pick in the USFL, Shea Patterson. Because famously, I say it every week on our show, Trevor Harris is my age. He is 1 month older than I am. And the fact that he is playing professional football in any sense of the word is pretty insane to me. But like you said, it's not setting up. There's no future there.
That's true. Do you wake up in the morning ready to play touch football, contact football, tackle football? So it's amazing what he does. He's in good shape. He looks after himself and he works out tremendously hard. But that one, last year was only a sprained knee, but 2 years ago was major surgery for it. So the fact that he came back and played at a pretty good pace, but he also can't run the football, and other teams know that. And we all know in the CFL, you have to be able to run the football as a quarterback, right? Even if you don't run it very often, which he didn't, he has to be able to as part of the threat. So, and Reed, as we were just talking about going forward, I don't know what they do. They're only going to have 1 quarterback then, and I think they have to deepen that resource a little bit and find somebody who's able. Maybe Jack Cohen, the Notre Dame quarterback, who's 3rd string on their depth chart, looked pretty good when he played just a little bit, and he seems to have caught on. But how do you know? But it might have to clear space for him and get somebody else on top. Not that we wish the worst of Trevor Harris. When he came to Regina, I've been watching him for years thinking, boy, there's a guy who doesn't seem phony all the time. No, he's not. He's like that constantly. And I really gained a lot of respect for him over the last couple of years. But is he still good enough? He's never won a Grey Cup as a starting quarterback. And to me, that still might be the number 1 knock against him.
So I have more general questions about the league. You guys have any other things Sask specific we want to talk about? Because then I want to rotate. I want to get a little bit more about Randy. Do you have anything else with Sask?
Well, actually, as we're talking about potential quarterback options, if you do bring in someone like Trey Ford, do you think the staff at this moment is going to have the resources to put around Trey Ford? Because I think that's one of the biggest complaints that I think at least from our end and from other people's ends, in his time in Edmonton, it never seemed like they really gave him a fair shot. Do you see Saskatchewan maybe going that way, or do you think they'll do something more traditional, I guess someone like Davis Alexander?
Great point to look at. I thought Edmonton had surrounded him with pretty good running back. Gene Lewis, a pretty good receiver. I think that top end talent is better in Edmonton than it is in Saskatchewan. Is AJ Ouellette done? I think he is. That's a tough thing to say. He's their high price free agent, and I don't know if he had 1 or 2 good games, but can he do it game after game? So they probably need a new running back. Their offensive line, people have criticized it, but they had 16 different players on that offensive line, and I think they've solidified a lot of those spots. When you look at Logan Ferland, Peter Godber at center, the Trevion Tate, the guys they put, and Trevor Reed, who played 18 games at left tackle as a rookie. I think they've put in place a very good offensive line to protect whoever is there at quarterback. Great point in having to upgrade, I think, at running back. Right, Raquel Armstead ain't coming back. They had scraps at the end of the year. He's not a good person to have in a locker room. So he's not coming back. I don't know if they bring back AJ Ouellette. They probably will, but they probably need another running back. They've got great Canadian receivers. Ken Schaefer-Baker, right? Sam Emelis, good Canadian. Del Duncan Busby, the draft pick they took, good Canadian receivers. Mitch Picton can fill in anywhere. Their Americans aren't quite as good, right? Keyshawn Johnson got pretty good at the end. So they're going to have to find, whoever they bring in, some high-end talent, which would make it more appealing for a Davis Alexander, or at least more appealing for a Trey Ford to come to Saskatchewan.
I guess that's a quick follow-up, and I want to rotate. But, because you would have to say way exceeded expectations this year, right? First year.
The Riders did?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But then, you're saying, okay, we got the Trevor Harris, we got the AJ Ouellette, we got all these issues now. So, is there a fall-off next year? Is this the honeymoon period where you kind of had a lot of good pieces there already? Corey Mays can come in. I'm just curious how you navigate that, and then I have a follow-up.
They brought in some good ones around that. Ouellette didn't have a good year because he was hurt, and I think he's worn out. Harris has missed games, so there's still – he can play quarterback in the league if they have to go with him. The offensive line is great, but they also got Jameer Thurman, right? Micah Johnson, who looks like he could play another 6 or 7 years. Hasn't he been great the last couple of years? An all-star again. C.J. Rivas, a great outside linebacker, coverage linebacker. Roland Milligan Jr., the best defensive player in the league.
How is Roland Milligan Jr. not for MLP discuss? He should have been on the ballot.
Yeah, he could have been both, right? He won special teams player, outstanding defensive player, and outstanding player for the Rough Riders. I don't think anybody's ever done that. Usually guys don't want to play special teams. He wants to play everything. So I think, Reed, in answer to your question, will they have a drop-off? No. I think they're going to find out that maybe some of those high-priced guys, they didn't need them, and they've developed a few, but you can always find Royce Shivers, the old Hall of Fame general manager who knew personnel here, and half the guys in the Hall of Fame are probably recruited by Roy Shivers, says you can find a running back anywhere. So I think that there are some around who will really help that football team if they go that way. But I don't see a drop-off. I see with Corey Mace, Mark Mueller, their second year in the organization, I see a bit of an upswing as opposed to a drop-off.
Let's do a couple more here. Dan Ralph was supposed to come. I haven't seen him yet.
I saw Dan. He just phoned me. He doesn't know what building he was in the wrong. Dan was in the wrong.
So he's coming. That's fine. I'm not worried about it. We can bring in Rick early. Yeah, there's two sides of the
Toronto guy. He's a Toronto guy. He's lost.
More general thoughts here. Obviously, Randy Ambrosie stepping down, getting ousted, whatever. Curious your thoughts on that, and kind of we were talking on the way back last night to the hotel. I don't know what you want from another commissioner coming in, but I'm just curious your thoughts. I see you smiling already.
Well, what they want is somebody who does everything that all nine representatives want. And you can't do that. The teams that are successful, or the leagues that are successful, NFL, even the NHL under Gary Bettman is making money, right? Because one guy is in charge. Major League Baseball, NBA, they put one man in charge. In the CFL, the problem is, and I've been to 37 Grey Cups, there have been 12 different guys I've seen stand up there and give the state of the league address, and every one of them gets ripped apart in the end by these 9 owners, and not all owners, some of them are community-owned teams, but 9 governors who just want everything their way. They should let somebody be in charge and make those decisions like it's his project. And I know they say the commissioner doesn't have any skin in the game. He's not a part owner of any of the teams. So but put him in charge of it like it is his team. Give him a 7 and 8 year contract. They're so scared. They're so gun shy because they've hired so many people who don't do the right thing, that if they do find somebody, and maybe Mark Cohan was the right guy, put him in charge and give him a 12 or 15-year contract and let him run it. And if you really do have to fire him, they still could, but give him that much authority. They didn't give Randy Ambrosie that much authority. They never will in this league, and that's why they keep shoving guys out the door.
Yeah. I see Dan Ralph coming in here. We'll get him on here in just a minute. I know a couple different convention centers. Where are they going? I'll have a follow-up. Andy, do you have anything you want to toss to Darrell here about Randy? Anything else? Because I got a follow-up about that.
Is there something that you believe that Ambrosie did well during his tenure? For example, as you mentioned, the ownership thing. There's a lot of stability now in some of the ownership groups that there wasn't there when he first came in. Amar Doman, obviously, Pierre Carl Pelado, obviously Edmonton stabilizing their ownership. Those are things that I think of. I'm not sure if you see it the same way.
Exactly the same. This ownership group has probably never been stronger. Right? You still wonder a little bit about Toronto with MLSE, what's going to happen with the Argonauts, but they're there and they've got the finances to do it. So that's the irony, the twisted irony of this. And Randy Ambrosie brings together maybe the strongest group of owners this league has ever had, and then they push them out the door. Can they find somebody to deal with all those guys? I don't know. But that's the one thing he did. But I keep pointing at so many bad things, like the globalization. I don't know if it's going to work. It's an interesting thought. He shouldn't have pinned his hopes on it. And I keep saying it doesn't take a genius to figure out why he's out the door. It's all about Genius Sports. He gave away 10% of revenues for CFL Ventures to let them come in and be partners. And how bad was Genius Sports we didn't have stats for an entire year. You know, anybody who puts in place something like that and this totally explodes in his face, I think that's why, as much as why Randy Ambrosie is out of work as anything.
And we'll get Dan here in a second. I'll let you go. I know you've been filling in here. I appreciate the commitment. Is that indefinite, the revenue sharing that way? Like, I mean, now it's whoever comes in, they're stuck with that, right?
Sort of, yeah. They've got a contract, and I haven't seen if it's a lifetime contract with Genius Sports. I hope it isn't, but he did. I remember when he came in and said, how much did they pay for this? Oh, we gave them an ownership stake in it. So that could be perpetual. And, you know, if they finally do get the CFL making money, I know it's flat. And that's another one of the reasons the franchise value hasn't improved. And that's why Randy Ambrosie is out too. But if it ever does improve, which owner wants to give up 10% of his profits to somebody who actually ended up hurting the league for 2 or 3 years?
All right, let's bring Dan in here. Darrell, thank you so much. I'm just checking my notes, seeing who's coming on here. Darrell, I appreciate it. Are we going to see you at the suite? You hanging out?
I don't know. Maybe. I'll see what I do. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Darrell, appreciate it. Dorothy, maybe we can bring Dan in, and then we'll get. I know Rick's on next year. We're kicking him out. We got Dan Ralph, Canadian Press here. Went to the wrong convention center. That's okay. It's confusing. I said a lot of things. Dan, how the heck are you this 4 years in a row? What's going on, man?
Couldn't be better. Great week, and the only thing bad is the weather, but we have no control over that. So all good.
Just to continue, and then we'll get back to the game here. Maybe Andy has a question about that. But curious your thoughts. We were just talking with Darrell about Randy leaving, the legacy. We're straddled now with the Genius Sports and the global adventure and all that didn't work out. Like, curious your thoughts here as we're weak and he's stepping down.
Well, I think, he was in a no-win situation because he promised to double league revenues, and that was going to be a really, really tough sell. And ultimately, I think that's what cost him, right? I mean, the governors need money, and they want money. They expect money. They expect certain revenues. And when you don't deliver, you can be the nicest guy in the world. But, these guys need money. They want money. They expect money. And they were promised. And unfortunately, the reality is that there was a shortfall there.
I'll toss to Andy after this. Given how hamstrung the commissioner of the CFL is compared to other leagues, is that unfair expectations where we want this, but you're not necessarily in the position?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I equate it to the owners want somebody to save them from themselves, right? They want somebody to fix their problems. And the problem Randy has is that he's got 9 different entities pulling him 9 different ways. And, you keep your supporters at bay, you keep your detractors even closer, and the guys that are in the middle, you really got to try and appease them. So I think if Randy could be faulted, I think he tried to gain consensus from all 9 owners when basically all he needed was 5. I mean, it's not a bad thing for him to be, but I think at the end of it, he just tried to please too many people instead of trying to please a majority.
Andy, you can continue with that or switch to the game kind of wherever you're looking.
Well, yeah, to continue with that, I just wanted to know, what do you expect or maybe hope for the next commissioner in line to do in terms of handling that dynamic with the ownership and the board of governors?
Well, the next commissioner in 2 years has a new television agreement to negotiate, so there's an opportunity there. The problem with that is as soon as you get a new television agreement, the collective bargaining agreement can be opened between the players and the league because there's a revenue sharing model in that. So if all of a sudden the new commissioner hits the bullseye and really, brings in some more TV money, and the players are going to say, okay, we want a share of that too. So the good news is there's labor peace for the next 4 years. It can be reopened, but I think the TV deal is probably the biggest opportunity that the new commissioner will come, because the deal south of the border and in Canada both expire at the same time. So then you have the opportunity to renegotiate both deals.
I got to follow up, and then we'll go to Jason. Yeah, can you let anybody in the world know that the CFL Plus in America is just a disaster? I mean, I got people on the stream. Is it on Plus? Is it on Sports Network? Like, no one knows what the hell's going on. And then you get in there, and I saw Rosh's tweet, and I know everyone has thoughts about him otherwise, but he's talking. Oh, Randy says it's working. I go, you have all these Canadians sitting there. No one in this room is actually using that service. So you're talking,
and neither am I.
So it's like we might as well be talking about a Mars landing at this point. That's how connected we are. So just if you could let me, let anyone in the world know that is terrible.
I sat through the whole Genius Sports statistics snafu. No, I don't use Plus. I was at the CFL Awards banquet, and they were streaming it on Plus.
Jason, what do you got? Maybe we can transition to the game. We got Toronto here.
Please do, because this is painful.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the 2026 Grey Cup, which was recently awarded to Calgary. And Ambrosi said a few years ago when Calgary last hosted the Grey Cup, this will be the last Grey Cup we'll ever host at McMahon. But here we are in 2026. We're going to be hosting it again here.
Yeah.
What do you think the future holds for football in Calgary?
I think there'll be some refurbishments to McMahon. Won't be a brand spanking new facility. I was also told that Calgary's proposal for 2026 was very solid. So there might be stadium shortfalls, but maybe there are other avenues that they can make the experience a positive one. This one here, they've gone all out, and it's a little. I mean, this is the first time I've been in this area of the convention center, but it's impressive. They've done a really magnificent job, and Winnipeg's got a big act, a tall act to follow next year, and I suspect in 2 years' time Calgary will too. So I mean, let's keep an open mind. The stadium is what it is. Hopefully they can fix it up to make the presentation better. But if anybody's thinking there's going to be a brand spanking new stadium, I got Swampland in Florida that's going cheap.
Let's talk the game real quick, and then Dorothy can get Rick here if she's paying attention. They'll always have her standing by, and then she gets busy talking to Dave Naylor over here in Sweden. Let's talk game real quick. Obviously, not necessarily the matchup we want, with Chad Kelly being out and everything else. What do you make of the game? And then maybe you guys have a follow-up, and we'll rotate guys.
I've had a chance to think it over. Initially, I thought this is Winnipeg's game to lose. Now I'm starting to sway a bit and think that Toronto has more than a puncher's chance against this team. The Argos, as we all know, started the year without Chad Kelly. They were 5-4. Included in that was a win over Winnipeg. And then when Winnipeg was on a roll and had won 8 straight, Toronto went into Manitoba and won. Both games were tight. Both games were not aesthetically pleasing. I mean, the margin of victory was 5 combined points. But the Argo defense got 12 sacks and forced 9 turnovers. And if, as good as Winnipeg is, if they can't protect the football, then I think Toronto hangs around. And the longer Toronto hangs around, the more they believe.
Jason, any last things for Dan here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Winnipeg, if you look back at their track record, yes, they've been in the last 4 Grey Cups, but Zach Collaros hasn't played too well in those games. So do you think a third loss really damages the legacy of this Blue Bombers team?
I do. I think so. The same way I think if they win it, we can sort of put the moniker on them that they maybe are the most dominant team over that stretch. But to get there is, I mean, it's a huge accomplishment. I get it. But you're in it to win it. And if you don't win it, then everything you did to get there I think, I don't want to say is a waste, but I mean, I think the players will tell you it's unfulfilling, right? So I do think if they win it, the two things. One, they avenge a 2002 loss to Toronto. Two, it's their 3rd and 5. And 3, I didn't realize this until I got here this week, but Toronto's 8-0 against Winnipeg in the Grey Cup. So, and Toronto's won their last 7 trips to the Grey Cup. So to me, there's a lot there. And I think with a win, Winnipeg erases all that stuff that I just said about Toronto, but they, I think, put a stamp on that we are still the most dominant team in the league.
Well, Dan, thank you. We'll bring Rick Serritella in next. Appreciate it, Dan. As always, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Be well, gentlemen.
Good
Enjoy
luck.
your week.
Let's bring Rick in here. Rick Serritella, longtime friend of the program. We're live from the McLaren Custom Grills as I'm breaking my laptop here, opening things I shouldn't be opening. We're at the McLaren Grills Media Row here. I appreciate them and the Lions setting this up. Rick, we were just talking at breakfast. Okay, first off, how are you?
What's happening?
So Jason and I were just talking to brunch about, like, you see people on Zoom and then you see them in real life. And what do we expect? Or like, Andy, you look awesome. You look trim. You look fly. Not that I didn't think you were a cool guy, but like, holy cow, you look great.
Thanks, brother. I'm trying to keep up with you, man. You're doing good for yourself. You outkicked your coverage, I see, over here. And yeah, we're soaking it in, man. By the way, what a great city. I think the NFL, I was just talking to Rod Pedersen, I think the NFL is dropping the ball with all these international games, and you're not coming to play a game here? Are you kidding me? I mean, this is fantastic. I've been thoroughly impressed.
So people know you've been on before, all access football and everything, and scouting. Now you're with the Elks. Like, can you just, what do we got going on now? Busy guy who's with the IFAF. I can't even keep track all the time. What the heck's going on now?
Well, allaccessfootball.com is probably the best way to keep up with everything that's going on right now. But, listen, there's a lot of whispers out there in regards to what's going to happen with the Edmonton Elks, so I hear. So, listen, I'll tell you this. That team is built to contend. This is not a tear-down situation. I mean, you saw when we were rattling off that. In fact, I put the League podcast on. I don't even listen. I listen to the Markcast. Sometimes I want to throw my shoes at the monitor, but only because I respect you guys. But, I was tuned into the CFL podcast. They were talking about, can the Elks make a run to the Grey Cup? I mean, that's how good we were playing. So I don't think this is a tear-down job. I think this team is on the brink of contention. I think when you look at the games that we were in, we lost it due to a bad play here or there. And I think, we're ready to rock, so we'll see.
Andy, I know where you want to go, so I'll let Andy toss it here.
So it's unfortunate we didn't cross paths early this year. I went to Edmonton. More unfortunately, we lost to this gentleman's team. Bo Levi had an incredible game, but more importantly, what happened during that game was Trey came in, and I felt this just rush of momentum from those crowd. The energy level just changed. And how do you feel when you watch Trey in person and on tape? What do you see from him? What kind of assets do you think he brings to Edmonton?
He's a playmaker. I would just liken him to a point guard because of his ability to improvise. I think a lot of stuff is off structure, and some of it's by design, some of it's not. But I think, those are traits you can't teach. And so I think what you saw and what you felt is basically what we saw and felt, was that he needed to be the starter because he jump-started. Even though McLeod played well, I don't know if that was the issue, but you could see even the players, I thought, there was an extra pep in their step. That's just, and I'm watching from afar because I'm not there in season on the field in person, but I'm watching the footage and I'm watching on TV, and you can sense that and you can feel that. And I think, Trey's got a bright future ahead of him. He really does. But, he's got to stay healthy, I think, first and foremost. And, whether it's in Edmonton or somewhere else, I mean, he's going to be the face of this league for a long time.
Isn't it wild just all the time with all the alt leagues and stuff, and here McLeod, and he plays Argos and goes and plays in the USFL and comes back, and just the journey kind of all these guys go on now, and just how interconnected all these leagues are and all the different affiliations you've had over the years. I mean, it really is a different time, at least. I'm not as old and experienced as a lot of people, but it feels like it's a different time kind of in the football atmosphere right now.
I was thinking about during the COVID when McLeod was trying to make a NFL comeback because he actually only needs 3 games for his NFL pension. And that's how I got introduced to McLeod Bethel Thompson. I was so impressed, and there was no doubt in my mind after that workout that this man can be a backup in the National Football League, without a doubt. And I think the NFL is sleeping on some of the talent in Canada, and I won't go too far into that because I don't want to let them in on that right now. But it's funny how everything, like you said, comes back around. And when he said he wanted to come back to Canada, I said, maybe we should entertain that. And I was thinking about how working in the CFL is just really a relationship thing and a connection thing. And what a great speech by Nick Anderson the other night. And I was just telling the story, we were sitting in the bleachers at the Senior Bowl, and Coach Jones was telling me about this linebacker he's trying to recruit from Tulane, Nick Anderson, and I can't get a hold of his agent. I said, Coach, his agent's right there. And we called him over, and basically the deal was done on the spot. And, just the team building, the CFL experience, and having a year under the belt, man, I think with our leadership, we're in position to do some great things.
Yeah, you have to be tremendously proud of Nick Anderson. Did you believe that he really had the capability to get this award this year? I mean, he really was outstanding.
So we're sitting in Coach Jones' office in training camp with G-Roy and myself, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, listen, Nick Anderson might F around and find out and lead the league in tackles, and they just kind of start laughing at me. I'm just telling you what I see, guys. And sure enough, I think he did, right? Him and Niles, and that's the best linebacker unit in the CFL as far as I'm concerned. But he is the CFL Sam Mills, and I know he has NFL aspirations, and I think that's what we want our program to be. And any free agent player that wants to come out and play for Edmonton, we are never going to hold you back from an NFL opportunity. If you want to go out and you get that opportunity, we're going to let you go there because we understand that's going to help us recruit the next player. And that's what we want to do. We want to be a springboard. We obviously want to retain talent, but we also want to have the elite talent, the talent that we deem is capable of playing in the National Football League. I think we got quite a few of those guys, as a matter of fact.
I'll ask a follow-up, and then maybe Jason, if we talk Edmonton, anything else. Just curious, going in now, being a part of the CFL, experiencing all of that, jumping, just thoughts and because it's been really kind of a unique, crazy year for you and being able to come into this new position. Just curious your thoughts here of obviously all the experience you've had over the years.
Well, Canada never disappoints. I mean, I've loved every city I've been to. I would say, having gone through the process now, because I started talking to these guys. I mean, I was officially brought on board in January, but we started talking about this right around this time because now I see when the urgency was there last year at this time. Now I understand it because between now and May, when we report to training camp, that's basically where my role, where my value lies, because once we go to training camp, there's only so much tinkering we can do. And I thought G-Roy made some magical moves, bringing in Tevin Jones, Sean Oakman, Rank the Tank, eliminating some of the bad apples. Okay, I thought that was really the difference of our culture. But between now and May is basically where my value is. And we're going to start recruiting and, have these announcements made and get, the work hasn't stopped, right? But, you need clarity to move forward. And I think that's where we're headed.
Jason, you got anything about Edmonton?
Yeah, for sure. Just to build off of what we've talked about the Elks roster, where do you think the areas of improvement are for this team going into next year?
Well, I thought the offensive line stepped up their game this year, and that is something I want to see continue to improve because the game is won in the trenches. And so I think that Noah Taylor has an opportunity to step his game up, and Elliott Brown, I think, is as good of a pass rusher as there is. But when you talk about the CFL, you need to create pressure. You need to win in the trenches. And I'll tell you what, our secondary, we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and stop making knucklehead plays early.
Last question for you. We'll bring on Jamie Knight here. Thoughts on the game? Who do you have? Again, it's an interesting matchup here. So let's talk about actual Grey Cup here before we get out. Thoughts around them.
I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think it can come down to whoever has the ball last. And you talk about Nick Arbuckle is Mr. Adversity. He's built for this moment. I do believe in all the adversity that this man has dealt with throughout his career has prepared him. You know, you talk about preparation meets opportunity. I think he might bring some of that big Nick energy. And I'll tell you what, man, this game's going to go down to the wire. It's going to be a very competitive game. All the pressure is on Winnipeg, right? So I think Winnipeg is feeling the pressure. I think Toronto comes in here a little bit more loosey-goosey. And, man, I'll tell you, it's going to be fun. But I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it.
So you're saying that Toronto's basically going to have a statue of Nick Arbuckle outside of BMO Field in about 2 months' time. Is that what you're telling me?
His Nick Foles moment.
It is going to be his Nick Foles moment.
Well, I appreciate it. We'll bring in Jamie Nye here. Thank you so much, Rick. Appreciate it, man. Rick Serritella, everything else. Appreciate all the support.
I'm just going to grab a selfie real quick before I get out of here, so don't mind me on the live stream.
It's all doing it here. This is a fluid situation.
Outstanding,
Does this work out? We do a good job. We try. This year 4. It's a little different than we were in the back of the bar here in Hamilton the first year.
Let's a little squeeze in.
There we go.
Hey,
we got it. There we go. Thanks, Rick. Let's bring in Jamie Nye. We got Jamie Nye with the Green Zone. Again, reminder here from the McLaren Custom Grills Radio Row. We're broadcasting the only officially licensed CFL barbecue grills. To see and purchase the grills, go to McLarenCustomGrills.com. This week is a promo code CFL to get 10% off. Jamie Nye here with the Green Zone. We've been talking at the suite the last couple weeks. We have a question here from Ken. I think you can hop in. 2 years ago, Mosaic basically sold out. I would disagree with that. There was a lot of empty seats. Hamilton last year added seats, neutral sites. Why are there so many tickets available tomorrow?
Well, Vancouver has always been a softer market for the Canadian Football League. All the major cities have been when it comes to Grey Cup ticket sales. The smaller markets, they have a bigger season ticket holder base, so those are eaten up all the time by season tickets buying their Grey Cup tickets beforehand. So there's a smaller supply out there. In BC, it's a bigger supply, and it would have been sold out if the Rough Riders or BC Lions would have been in the Grey Cup 100%. But it's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers again, and I think there's a little bit of even Winnipeg fans who have traveled to 4 consecutive Grey Cups are going, okay, do I have to travel to a 5th? So that is a lot of the reason on why. Now, I don't know how much it's a lot of seats. I've went on the map. There are open seats, but I think it's still going to look pretty full for game day on Sunday.
We'll go to Andy here in a second, then Jason. Just candid thoughts on the game. Little lackluster here with the Nick Arbuckle Bowl, right? Or are you feeling? I think we've done some heavy lifting this week, trying to make this maybe feel a little bit bigger.
I've talked to Nick Arbuckle on a few occasions on the show when he was going in as the Ottawa Red Blacks quarterback. This week I talked to him again. Nick Arbuckle's a great story. Nick Arbuckle had, if you listen to his interviews, if you listen to who this guy is and how he is built, you're cheering for Nick Arbuckle to have that trophy in his hand. It hasn't been an easy path for Nick Arbuckle in his life. Hasn't been an easy path in the Canadian Football League. So as much as it is kind of disappointing, it's not Chad Kelly and the Argos but Nick Arbuckle is a story to root for this year's Grey Cup. At least it is for me.
What do you got, Andy?
Someone we haven't really mentioned today on our podcast is Brady Oliveira. Obviously, tremendous season last year, didn't win the MOP. This year he does. Do you think he has something to prove, and how much do you think this really matters to him as somebody who kind of was in the shadow of Andrew Harris previously in the previous Grey Cup wins, but since Oliveira took over started, they haven't really had that moment yet. Do you think this means a lot to him?
Yeah, this is similar to like a Darian Durant, when he was the quarterback and he wanted to win his own Grey Cup. I know he's not the quarterback, but for Brady Oliveira, it matters to him that he's going to be the lead back on Sunday and try to finally get something that's near and dear to him. He's a Winnipegger, right? Like he's from there. Now he's the double winner of the Canadian and most outstanding player. And what better would it be to cap that off as maybe Grey Cup MVP and winning the Grey Cup for his hometown as the lead back for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So absolutely, Brady Oliveira is another guy. Man, did you know what this guy does in the offseason? He goes and saves dogs around the planet. Like, this guy is one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. So another person that I love in the Canadian, I love a lot of the people in the Canadian Football League, and Brady Oliveira is one of those guys who I can root for easily.
Well, I hate him because BC can't tackle him and can't manage him, and he just runs. Was it last year in the finals? He's just running down the field. There's like 5 Lions just clinging on him, trying to. So I do not share your sentiment, Jamie.
Do you not like dogs?
I like dogs. We got people. We got photo bombers here. That's exciting. We're living life here. But no, spray over. Talk about the awards he got, how impressive that is, and then we can go to Jason.
Well, he shouldn't have won one of them. It should have been Roland Milligan Jr.
Well,
who was
sure.
the most outstanding player of the year in the Canadian Football League, in my probably biased opinion, being from Saskatchewan. But when I look at what Roland Milligan did this year, it was an outstanding season. First guy since Hall of Famer Willie Pless to get 20 special teams tackles and lead a defensive category, which he did in interceptions. Like, that is outstanding. That is rarely seen in the Canadian Football League. So I think that storyline got kind of downplayed. And yes, 1,800 yards from scrimmage. Yes, 4 touchdowns. Like, he's the most outstanding Canadian. Absolutely. My vote would have went somewhere else for the most outstanding player award, but Roland Milligan Jr. didn't come out of the West, so I didn't have that option.
We just had a comment here. They're talking about, going to Winnipeg next year. And I go, well, now watch Winnipeg falls off next year. And then it'll be the continued. Jason, what do you have for Jamie? And then we'll start getting Dorothy's attention. We'll get Rod over here soon.
Yeah, just to build off what we were talking about with the awards, do you think the way that the CFL does their nominees for the awards, doing this East-West nominations, is a little bit outdated? And maybe we should do what I was hearing about on the 3 Down Nation podcast. Just pick the top.
Who?
Oh, I don't know. Just pick the 3 best candidates of the whole league, regardless of division.
They stole my idea. I've been talking about this for 10 years or more, but of going the NHL awards, right? NHL awards, you vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your first, your second, your third, fifth. They tally. All those are different points. The top 3 point getters are the nominees. The voting's done. They already know who won. They just announced the top 3 vote getters. And then you're highlighting an extra player at Grey Cup week every single year. Now, that's a financial burden on the league because they'd have to fly another person in. So that's probably a little less appealing to the league to go to 3 and have more people you're paying hotel rooms and flights for. But I like it. I like the top 3. I think it makes sense. It highlights more players. And then there would be an opportunity for maybe vote splitting for offensive players where we'd have a little bit more. There's only been 1 defensive player to be the MOP, and that was Solomon Elamimian. So I don't think that's right.
Well, it feels like the NFL too, where the MVP and it's always the quarterback. I mean, it's hard to, especially to get a defensive player, even though it should be.
I look at the defensive players in this league, and they get, I don't want to say disrespected, but it's always a bias towards offense because some people say they have their own award. They have the most outstanding defensive player award. So it's not the most outstanding offensive player of the league. It's the most outstanding player of the league. But I do like the verbiage of these awards. I like the outstanding instead of valuable, because if you went to valuable, 99% of the time you're getting a quarterback. Outstanding opens for running backs, receivers. Solomon Elamimian a decade ago for a most outstanding player award.
Andy, what do you got? And then we'll start moving the rotation here.
Something that really stood out to me last year watching the stream in Hamilton is you sat on the set and you said about Saskatchewan, how much culture do you really have if you won 4 Grey Cups in 100 years? And that really stuck out to me. Can you talk about what is the best aspect of Corey Mace as a leader and as a coach this year, really kind of bringing in and sort of transforming Saskatchewan?
Accountability. That is the one word I think Corey Mace has brought to this organization is accountability, because he holds himself accountable. He's the first guy to say, he did it after the West final. He said it was a bad game plan. He didn't use those words, but he said it was a bad game plan. That's on him. He's got to be better. He'll take some bullets. But when a guy in training camp, right away in training camp, Bruno LaBelle was late for a meeting, and he was dragging the bag back and forth a couple of times as a discipline, accountability. And you've seen it. They're all accountable. Even to the media, they're a lot more open when they make a mistake to talk to media and be open to the fans about it. And when you have an accountability, the accountability issue was an issue in Saskatchewan. Now that's no longer the case, and I think they all hold themselves accountable. which is beginning to grow a winning culture like they have in Winnipeg and like they have in Toronto.
You guys have anything else? We'll bring Rod in.
Thoughts on the game, and who do you think comes out?
I'm going with the upset. I'm going with Toronto. You got Wynton McManus. You got Oramilade. I like Ralph Hawley in the middle. You have playmakers on special teams and Gennari and Grant. You have playmakers all over the offense. I like Kadeem Carey matchup against Brady Oliveira. Quarterback and receivers is where I give the edge to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. A lot of the other stuff, I'm giving it to Toronto Argonauts. It's just up to Nick Arbuckle to be okay. If Nick Arbuckle's okay, the Argos win.
Jamie, appreciate it. Rod's destroying our set. We'll bring in Rod Beers in here. Appreciate it, Jamie. We'll see you later at the suite. I appreciate it. We have Dave Naylor standing by here. A lot of good guests coming. Like I said, like and subscribe. Get us up over 4,000 subscribers. Give away a couple of custom jerseys here from Dustin with Royal Retros here when we get 4,000. So please like and subscribe. Join the channel. Do all that. Rod, I was on your show yesterday. I might have been feeling the effects of the FRC suite and everything Thursday night. I was a little tired there, but we got through it. I did your show. You're here now, Rod. How are you doing?
That's why you had alcohol on your breath. I wondered if I was like, I didn't want to say anything, but since you brought it up, your wife, your wrangler fell asleep on the job. She's visiting too much.
I know. She's too chatty.
No such thing. So, yeah, you brought bearing gifts. There's no way that I could repay you, so I'm not even going to try.
Well, I appreciate it. Rod's here, a long time support, one of the first Canadians we ever had on the show, big merger and all that. Rod, what do you make of all this? We're here, Grey Cup week, and what do you think?
I'm pretty blown away, to be honest. I've been to multiple Grey Cups in Vancouver, 2011, 2005, 2011, 2014. I think this is the 17th Grey Cup in Vancouver. Do you read the game notes, Reed? Do you read the game notes?
I haven't yet. I've been a little busy here.
Rely on me to do that. I don't know about you guys if you've been to a Super Bowl before, but last year in Vegas, the Lions people were there. I saw them, and they were writing down notes. This is a carbon copy of the Fan Fest. I can't remember what the NFL called it, but this is very similar. Radio Row, a little smaller, but the Fan Fest, all the same stuff. So that's pretty cool.
So you excited about you think, I don't know, how do you feel about the league right now? Randy's stepping down. What do you think of general welfare thoughts here, and then we'll go to Andy?
Well, as you know, I don't work in the league anymore, so not that I don't care. I'll always care, but I'm not worried about it anymore. How could you look around at this week and think that this league's in any way trouble? But people do want to talk about it, and they say, what's next? With the next commissioner, I fully believe they don't know who it's going to be. But what I hear is that expansion is on the horizon. They want to get to 12 teams. The expansion revenue, look at your Kraken, you're wearing their lid. The money that comes with an expansion franchise will infuse a lot of money into this league, and I think it's going great places. I do. You wouldn't love the league if you didn't believe in it. The league's great. The product has always been unbelievable. That's fine. It's the business end. And from what I understand, things are looking up there. So the product will always be good.
Andy, what do you got?
Rod, from our perspective, just as overall football fans and following all the leagues, the word expansion is maybe the hottest corporate buzzword that there could be. Everybody just loves to smash that button. But as far as the realistic options go in Canada, and I thought it was interesting that Randy Ambrosi kind of broke down how it wouldn't really be much of an option to go in America at the moment. Where do you see the realistic possibilities in Canada?
Well, I've got some intel. Quebec City for sure. I mean, they're ready to go, and they love not just football, but Canadian football in Quebec. Mm-hmm. So I think you can put that down as one of them. Mm-hmm. And I hear Windsor. I don't know if you guys know. I've never been there. I've never been to Detroit.
I went to school there.
Oh, yeah. So they tell me that's a huge NFL hotbed, but I think the potential owner has a lot of money. Windsor would be another. Mm-hmm. And then there is talk of Europe, but I don't really want to go down that road. But as you say, people love to talk about it. And for the last few years, I'm like, let's not even talk about it because the league doesn't want to expand, because that was the last thing I'd heard, that they don't. But things change. And now they do want to expand. And it's being led by Larry Tannenbaum, the president of MLSC and the Argonauts owner. He's the guy that's leading this. He's a man he's the most powerful man in Canadian sports. So I kind of feel if he wants to get this done, it'll get done.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Randy Ambrosi's legacy as CFL commissioner. You just talk about the things that you felt like he did well and some of the things that were kind of his shortcomings.
Well, I'll tell you, I've seen him speak a couple times here this week. This morning at the Athletes in Action breakfast, which I didn't see you at, Reed. It's a God-centered event. Not that you hate God or anything, but
I was sleeping in from the FRC suite last
night. So I saw him there. I saw him at the Legends Luncheon yesterday, the alumni event. And let's remember, he's alumni. I mean, I like Randy. Reed and I got into this yesterday on my show. Arash, can we say, hates him for his own reasons? Those aren't my reasons. And when I hear Randy speak, I'm like, he's a good guy. He's a player. I like Randy. And I think that job was impossible to be successful at. You know, there hasn't been a good commissioner since Mark Cohan, which was the last time they expanded, was on Mark's watch. So anyways, Randy's legacy, I think, is going to end up being he got the stable ownership in Quebec, BC, Edmonton. That will be his legacy, but that's not a lot to hang your hat on. He tried. I'll give him credit for having the balls to try Global 2.0. I didn't like it at the time. It flopped, but at least he tried. I'm not going to, throw a guy under the bus for trying something and it didn't work. He thought we need to expand outside the country's borders. It didn't work. They didn't expand on his watch. That's his legacy. I'd like to say that there was more, but he's in a tough job because the owners run this league. That's it. That's what it is. Not the commissioner. From what I understand, Roger Goodell runs the NFL. That's the sense that I've been told. Probably gets his direction a lot from the owners, but it's more so in the CFL.
In terms of, and I think it was the article that came out, with Randy stepping down or getting, all the Allison. A lot of it started back in 2020 with the failed COVID season and starting to begin. Is that your understanding of just, okay, we didn't do that. I think it really set the league back years, right? Those next 2 years after COVID, play was down, fan attendance was down, right? It's taken until now to really kind of get back to, I think, where it was. Thoughts on that? And I mean, I know it's ancient history now, but really set the stage for where we're at now.
I should actually mention, I sat at the Legends Luncheon with Randy. He was at my table. I tweeted a photo of it. So it's probably where it started. And Randy needs to wear this. He went to Parliament Hill and met with that standing committee, basically asking for COVID funding, which in Canada, Reed, you wouldn't get it. Well, mind you, probably got Biden checks too, like everybody in America. But Trudeau was handing out money to everybody. And they go, Randy, what do you want, Randy, as a CFO? How about $150 million? They laughed at him. He didn't have a business plan. That's on Randy. And then he goes, well, we'll take 30. I don't even know if they got that. So that's where it started. And then the fact that they didn't play at all was probably the owner's decision. You think Randy didn't want to play? Of course he'd want to play, but they couldn't find a way to play. And we all know the CFL is not a major North American pro league, but it's a pretty big pro league, and they're the only one that didn't play out of all of those. So that's not, it maybe started there, but the fact is that they're not making money to the degree that the owners want is why they're looking for a new commissioner.
Follow up here. We'll do a couple. We'll get Dave on because he's been standing by. He's on his phone now, so that's good. Like expectations, though. Yeah, the owners want more money. Remember, I'm talking with Dorothy last night. We're walking back and we're kind of prepping for the show, and I go, you look at like the Cowboys, $11 billion franchise. Commanders just sold, right? $7 billion franchise. Obviously, the CFL is not. But it's not even close. It's not even in the same world. And I just what are the expectations? It just feels so far fetched. The board of governors wants whatever. I don't know even if that's possible for the next commissioner.
I think it is possible. They need to change the way they do things. I mean, before you and I even met, I was very deeply involved in this league. Reed, I was sitting in league meetings that the commissioner was in, and he was saying we need to go dark for 6 months in the off season. I'm like, did he just say that? And I saw it. And it wasn't Randy. It was a predecessor to him. And so they need to be everywhere. The NFL is everywhere. And, I'm everywhere. And I was at Super Bowl, and I picked up stories there that Jerry Jones didn't want to play. That's why the Dallas Cowboys aren't playing any global games. He don't want to. But nobody knows that because that's not reported. But Jerry's like, I want to make as much money in America as possible. They're like, thanks, Jerry, but we're going to go play in London and Germany and Brazil, and you can stay home if you want. All that extra money went into the cow. It's not because Jerry's not a genius. My God, he's not. But expansion, it's getting bigger, being everywhere. They need a lot of help in the marketing, and I think it could happen. I don't think it's too late. You're seeing it here with BC. a huge increase in attendance, a major kick in the nuts that they're not in the game, but it can be done, but they need to change the way that they think. And good luck to the next commissioner if he's able to do that.
My favorite tweet from last night, I'll go to Andy, was talking about the Mike Tyson fight. And they're like, as most people that go to Dallas, they went and saw an event, 80,000 people left disappointed, just like they do with the Cowboys. That was great. Andy, anything you want to go? We'll do 2 more. We'll bring on Dave here.
Well, a little Venn diagram there, because one of the Jonas brothers was actually shown at the game or at the boxing match last night, and now he's coming over here for media today. So kind of funny with that. But, yeah, in terms of the ownership commitment, Lamar Doman was really very adamant yesterday about being really committed to this whole thing. I think he really sees this as not just his time, but generational time beyond him of being able to have his family involved in this for many years to come. Do you get the sense overall that more owners in the CFL are feeling that much more committed? Is this the strongest CFL ownership has ever been?
Well, that's the narrative they would like put forth. And I see no reason to dispute that. Local ownership is important. I mean, Montreal's Alouettes are owned by Quebecor. You know where they're from, Quebec. Edmonton was bought by a major heavy construction operator. I live in Miami, where the Dolphins are owned by a guy from New York, and it doesn't go over well. And the Dolphins are not a great organization. So local ownership was key. They oversaw that. I do think they are in a stable spot. And to be honest, it's the elephant in the room that you guys probably won't talk about. And I haven't heard a lot of talk of it here, but the Saskatchewan Roughriders are like a weak link in the whole thing, which nobody's ever said. But they're not making money. They're not in the Grey Cup and haven't been for over a decade. So who would have, Winnipeg's the only other community-owned team now, but they're in the Grey Cup. But I guess it doesn't take much to get Saskatchewan back, but they need to start.
Yeah, so I want to build off of that with Saskatchewan. I just want your thoughts on their season this year. Would you classify it as success? Obviously, it was a bit up and down. They had that skid in the middle of the season, but they were able to finish strong, and obviously they didn't get what they wanted. They lost last week, but your thoughts on Saskatchewan's season?
It's all perspective. That's it. However you want to look at it. I would say it's pretty successful. And Corey Mace, to take a team from where it was as a rookie head coach to where they finished up, hosting a home playoff game and losing, probably is a better job than Jason Maas, but I can see why Jason won. But there's a case to be made why Corey Mace should be coach of the year for what he did in his rookie season. Forget about the 7-game winless skid. Shouldn't matter. So that kind of answers your question. But the other thing is they haven't been in a Grey Cup in over a decade. The stadium is nowhere near full at all. They do have their problems as well. And their quarterback's contract is up. So it's not like they're going into next year on a huge wave of momentum, and that's not ideal.
Yeah, it's kind of almost just a bit surprising to me as an outsider to see so many Saskatchewan fans. And yet when I watch the games, like you said, you'll just see rows of empty seats, even during major games. I find that a bit surprising. Is there any reason for that, or a particular reason?
Yeah, they consciously have broken the tie with the community. I've seen it. It's not like they used to do. They don't have the community involvement, and it's a different place, guys. I mean, I was the voice of the team for 20 years, and I'd never really left Saskatchewan like most of the people there. And all I'd heard from the football people was, this is just like Alabama. This is just like Mississippi. I didn't really get it till I went to Alabama and Mississippi. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's all there is here. That's all they care about, right? But they've fractured that relationship with the fans consciously. They've tried to be the Dallas Cowboys, i.e. make money. You don't need to win to make money. They just forgot half of that. They're not winning championships, and they're not making money either. And now once you get behind that 8-ball, I would think it's pretty hard to come back.
Well, Rod, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on. We got Dave standing by, busy guy running around. Appreciate it, Rod. Pedersen, thank you so much. Safe travels back to Miami. Dave Naylor, TSN Insider, coming on. We've kept Dave standing by. It's been back and forth, but we got him on. Dave said he'll make time. Happy to do it. We don't have Farhan this year. Normally, Farhan and Naylor come as a co-pair, but Farhan's the child that's playing football today. Loser. We're going to talk CFL expansion in the States here. But first off, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for standing by. First off, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's a week that sometimes feels like it lasts forever and goes by quickly at the same time. I don't know how else to describe Grey Cup week, but we'll wake up tomorrow. We'll do the game. My 27th Grey Cup. And I think this has been a really positive one. The weather hasn't helped a little bit, obviously, some of the turnout and the rain and such, and the Lions not being in the game. But, I mean, I still think you feel a really positive vibe just throughout the entire week.
Yes, that's my question. Obviously, oogling and ogling here, right? Huge family zone, zip lines, everything going on. The Mar really came out. I mean, a lot of money and time and energy spent by the BC Lions. How big of a failure was this season for them on the football field?
Well, I think if you looked at where they were, first 5 weeks of the season, where they were even after 10 or 11 weeks, and the additions they made, past the middle of August to try to make sure they were here. And I'm talking about Matthew Betts and Nathan Rourke. They admittedly went over the salary cap, which is not illegal in the league. If you're willing to do it and pay the fines and that, you can do that. But unquestionably, that was the expectation. And I think really where it got away from them was when they had that game in October at Saskatchewan, and it basically winner gets home field playoff. They didn't win the game, and that to me was where the Lions season really got. And I think and I say this with all due respect to Nathan Rourke, but I think it would have served him better, the Lions, and Vernon Adams better if he just played it out in the National Football League. And I would think that if Nathan knew how this was all going to unfold once he came back, I don't want to speak for him, but I think, he might have done things differently and just said, hey, I'm going to come back in the offseason. I thought when you saw Nathan down the stretch of the season, he just seemed kind of mentally fatigued. And I think that comes from being on 5 teams in 12 months, in 2 different leagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in regards to that, I agree with you. It seemed like it was VA's team from the get-go, and then the chemistry kind of got messed with. But the other thing about the BC that I pointed out a couple weeks ago that kind of surprised me is just sort of the lack of physicality that the team had, and this was especially so considering they brought in Matthew Betts, they brought in Christian Covington. Were you surprised by kind of how soft they were, especially with like run defense or just in general an offensive line too?
I wasn't, because I've been listening to my colleague Farhan Lalji, screaming in my ear about it, the whole second half of the season, as everybody was talking about quarterbacks and who should play, and is it VA or is it Nathan and this and that. He was talking about defense, and that ultimately doesn't draw as much attention as a sexy quarterback controversy does. But yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that. And it's funny, it was a weird year for guys coming back from the National Football League, right? Mm-hmm. Like Nathan Rourke came back, didn't go so well. Matthew Betts came back, didn't go so well. Austin Mack came back, didn't go so well. And those are all guys that I don't think have, like we've seen sometimes where young guys, they're really hungry in the CFL, they go to the National Football League, they come back, that dream is dead, and they're not the same player. I don't think any of those guys fit that profile, at all. So it's even more surprising. I think they're all more likely to be Adam Bighills, who came back to the National Football League and just were better players than they ever were, and they were good before they left. That's how they got there. So it was a weird year in that regard, that having that presence, especially, there was just a way where they won that touchdown Pacific game, and it felt like, are they going to lose again this year? Evidently, yes.
You want to go for it?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously we're here in BC, and there's a lot of rumors about what's going to happen with this team's, Rick Campbell situation, the GM situation. Then we have what's happening in Edmonton and their vacant GM and head coach positions. What can you tell us about those 2 situations?
Well, the Lions line and messaging, and this comes from the very top of the organization, you're talking about president ownership level, is that they will begin the discussion about Rick Campbell's future next week. Right? And they've gathered the information, and Amar's been out of the country, they're running a Grey Cup. I think that's true, but I think it also means that they could still know where this is trending, even if the decision hasn't been made. And if they do go a different direction, now people are playing, this is how we do it, right? You look for clues. I mean, I think Ed Hervey's going to be the GM at Edmonton, is my thought. The Ticats, he doesn't seem to be, he's not conducting business on behalf of the Ticats until this is resolved. And so, Ed Hervey already hired Rick Campbell once in BC, right? And there seems to be a repatriation of Edmonton, people with Edmonton history in Edmonton. So, I think a lot of this is speculation, but I think it's intelligent speculation. Right? And I sometimes say we get into this time of year, there's a very thin line between reporting and predicting. Because I see people say, is that a report or a prediction? I can't tell, right? So I think that line, trying to be clear about that line, a lot of this is, I don't think any of this is done, but if the dominoes fell that way, I don't think it would surprise anybody. That's that. 2 weeks from now, Rick Campbell's the head coach in Edmonton, and Ed Hervey's the GM in Edmonton. I don't think that would surprise a lot of people.
Just curious your thoughts on Rick in general. I mean, obviously, BC is my team. I appreciate everyone that's done. I can separate that. I don't work for the team, and the criticisms of Rick. And even Neil McAvoy, right? And like you said, we've known these issues. It's been very similar issues the last couple of years going into Winnipeg, being unable to stop the run, being unphysical, all those things. So I guess just like overall thoughts of what Rick and Neil have done here. And it's just so frustrating to me as a fan to kind of like know we can see these issues and it feels like they're not being addressed. They brought in Nathan that had nothing to do with the 80% of the issues that the team was having outside of that. So to me, I just curious kind of your thoughts overall of kind of how this has gone.
Well, I mean, I'm just on the quarterback thing. I think it was logical that when a guy like Vernon Adams, who has as much commitment to that team from the offseason on, loses his opportunity, your best case scenario is that not all the locker room is going to be on board with that. And that's not a knock on Nathan, right? It's just like they rode with BA, from the offseason on, and we know what a team first guy he is. It's just very, very difficult to make that kind of switch midseason and not have it overflow into other aspects of your team, But I guess I don't really have an answer for you. Why? Because it seemed like the Lions, sometimes you see teams that are trending in the right direction. They're trending in the right direction last year. They had some holes and things to address. And earlier in the year, I mean, look at some of the things that have happened to this team positively. I mean, Justin McInnes was a backup in Saskatchewan. He led the league in receiving. I thought William Stanbick, particularly the first 2/3 of the season, was a real nice presence that they hadn't had, right? That was one of those things, who can we give it to that can get us 3 yards when we need it, but can also get us 30 every once in a while. And they brought him in. So it was, and you mentioned Covington, Pedersen. Every once in a while in football, you look at an organization, you go, they got a lot of good players, but somehow they're not a great team. And that was kind of the line. Like I'd have trouble going personnel-wise and saying, well, that's a lousy player, that's a lousy player. Farhan could do it maybe better than I do because he watched them up close and pays closer attention to them. But it doesn't strike me as a team that on an individual basis on either side of the ball had like extreme weaknesses in personnel. It reminds me a few years ago in Winnipeg where they had like individually, like guys in the secondary were great. I remember talking to their GM, Kyle Walton. It's like, we love all our guys in the secondary individually. They just don't play that well together. And that's kind of frustrating.
Well, it's kind of like the Jets this season, and obviously Aaron Rodgers is very different, but all that. But just we've assembled every great player in the world and everything, but none of us play cohesive. I mean, there's just no.
Remember 20 years ago the Philadelphia Eagles dream team? Remember what happened to that? Oh, that was when they had Michael Vick,
Vince Young,
the dream
Vince
team,
Young, and
Donnie Awesome.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Like they signed all these guys, and go look how they did. It's not that kind of game.
Yeah, Vince Young did not foretell a prophecy there. He thought he did.
Not at all.
But to stay on the quarterback for a moment, obviously Vernon Adams was very open about the very real possibility he will not be here in BC next year. I know this is always
more
a conversation
than his team was.
Certainly was. How do you see the quarterback market shaking out? This is a conversation every year, but it really seems like there could be a lot of movement.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of years it's been like, are there going to be enough quarterbacks and quality backups to go around the league? And this year, we kind of have a glut. And I haven't seen that before. And I should say we have a glut of players with a really high floor. We don't necessarily have a glut of players with a high ceiling in the league this year. But in terms of guys that you look at and say, yeah, that guy could be a starter in the league. That guy could be a solid number 2. I think 1 through 18 next year, we could have better 1-2 combinations across the league than we've ever seen. And some of it is the product of younger players getting to play, not enough room for everybody to be a starter. But you look at it, everybody said 3 months ago, well, when they trade VA, they got to trade in the East Division. They can't trade within the division. Where would that be? They ain't going to Toronto. They ain't going to Ottawa. Not going to Montreal. You're not going to Hamilton. The only one of those situations we're not pretty certain about is Montreal, where they may have to make a choice. And is there a way for them to keep both guys? I talked to Danny Machocha the other day. He's like, yeah, there might be, but we're very cognizant of not wanting to get into one of these situations where there's a weekly conversation about who our starting quarterback is. They kind of see what went on the West Coast. And, maybe we don't want to have, 2 guys with similar contracts and have them competing against each other week after week in practice. So I think they're going to go one or the other. But then you go, okay, so VA's moving somewhere. It's going to be in the West. Probably going to be Calgary. I mean, the PJ Walker contract that they signed is friendly enough that you could have him and somebody else. It's basically a playtime deal with $200,000 base, leaves some room. I think Saskatchewan, I think they're satisfied with Trevor, but life is about options, and if that's an option, they can certainly go there. And Edmonton, I mean, how do we predict until we really know who the head coach is? But maybe if it's Rick Campbell, that makes a Vernon Adams move Does he pull a Jordan McCivic? Like there's possibilities there, right? So, I mean, I think Vernon Adams is going to be playing. I would probably handicap in Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatchewan. It's a likelihood. Yeah. But it was a little awkward where, Lions management is not acknowledging what's going to happen this offseason, and Nathan Mark is. He says, I know where I'm going to be next. So that means Vernon Adams ain't going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. So my question is, just overall, you look at the season as a whole, what is the biggest storyline of this whole season?
I mean, it's hard to get away from the Bombers. The 0-4 start and the finish, right? That to me, and I think it was just almost, and this was maybe just a sense of the parity in the league, was just how many teams went on either good runs or bad runs. Like Saskatchewan went 7 winless. Ottawa nearly lost their last 7. And they were 8-3-1 at one point. You have the Lions who were 5-0. You have Saskatchewan that was 5-0. So it was a weird year of streaks. And again, and Edmonton, streaks of not getting beat by 30, but getting beat by less than a touchdown. It just kind of made it hard to sort of separate the teams, even though the records and the standings were very distinct. You look at it and say, but there's 3 walk-off losses there, right? That's not necessarily defining for your team. But I think it's hard to get past the Bomber thing. When you think of what they've accomplished and to get off to an 0-4 start with those home losses and looking nothing like they did, and like Michael Shea the other day, you don't need a knee-jerk solution if you know why the things are happening. And one of the things that I talked to him when I did the coaches interview this week, he mentioned one thing more. He talked about the injuries. He talked about guys not participating in preseason. And he also talked about that there were also some mistakes. They were making the same mistakes more than once, right? They would say that, hey, you make mistakes in football, but you got to correct them. And if you start making the same mistakes, it becomes a little bit different. Turnovers, those kinds of things. But to me, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are the story of this season.
I want to talk. We'll do this St. Louis thing before you get out of here, I promise. But I want to get your thoughts. We talked a lot, obviously, Randy today and everything. Thoughts on you, Randy's legacy, and all of that. Kind of your thoughts is, where do we move next as a league?
Well, I think, unfortunately, 2 things that we'll remember is he had 2 really big initiatives, neither of which came to really the fruition that people had hoped. One was expansion, which is a tough nut. I know he said on the stage the other day he thinks the 10th team is in Canada. Boy, I'll tell you, trying to finance a CFL suitable stadium in a market that does not have a team. I mean, I won't use the word impossible, but I hope nobody gives me that challenge. I mean, I think it's really, really hard. Outdoor stadium construction in Canada is really difficult. And when you're talking about the standard of what's needed for a CFL team and the economics of the league, I just don't know if it's doable. I don't know if you'd ever get there. And I say this with respect to Randy's efforts. I don't think we're any closer today than we were the day he took office. The other one was CFL 2.0. The theory was that if you got players from around the world playing in our league, you could create audiences in their countries. So I was willing to suspend disbelief out of the gate on that one. It's like, okay, it's outside of the box. I don't really see it. And, now I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, if there were 10 Canadians playing in a second-tier German soccer league, would people watch that on streaming? When I say second-tier, I'm not trying to be disrespectful in CFL. To a global audience, it's a second-tier league, right? Because they know the National Football, so you're going to show them something else. I think, it's kind of unfortunate that those 2 major initiatives, neither of them really helped the bottom line of the league. But I think 3 owners came in under him, right? That was important. And 2 of them were the exits of Bob Wettenall and David Braille, who were absolute, for better or worse, there was a bit of both, but were absolute pillars of this league, for a quarter of a century. And you've replaced them with Pierre-Carl Paladeau and Amar Don. Check mark. I think where the game is right now, that the tweaking that they did, I think it's produced a very, very compelling product. That's not an issue that anybody's going to have. The Genius Sports thing, we don't really understand it. It's digitization of our league.
How frustrating is that? We're 3 years in now. We don't understand what's going on.
Well, it's basically to, give the league data that it can use for broadcast and gambling. And look, it hasn't brought the returns that people hoped, but it's also was promised to be more of a long-term thing. And, Randy certainly, when he's challenged about it, says, I believe the things that I've made foundations for will bring returns to the league in the future. So, all those things, again, I think there's a bit of an assumption that the league was always going to survive the pandemic. Well, I mean, not necessarily. There's a reason they got into bed with the XFL. And from, as much as I reported about how far that was down the path, in conversations I've had subsequently, including this week, it was a lot further down the path than even we were reporting. And we were getting criticism for reporting that it was further down the path than it was. And
Please share.
They got, with Dwayne Johnson, they got into conversations like with him as a participant. They got into, how do we change the field? How do we do this? Like they were creating a hybrid game between a Canadian and American football, and they were deep into those conversations about what the game would look like. So, that was not fantasy. And I know they never, it was, we're talking about talking. No, they weren't talking about talking. They were talking about how big the field should be. And that's what they were talking about. So, that was real. And I've taken a lot of criticism for this, but I'll double down on it and clarify a little bit. I never said they should merge with the XFL. I said they should explore this fully, that they should walk down this path and see where it leads them. And ultimately, they decided it didn't lead them where they wanted to. Okay, they probably made the right decision given what happened to the XFL. But, I think that and Randy's made the point that the conversation with the XFL did allow him to give him some leverage to get some things done on the internal business of the league that he might not have been able to get without having that there. So it was, a bit of it did turn into a productive element for it. So again, give him a check mark. The league got through the pandemic, so that's another one. So most commissioners got some X's, got some check marks, but I've covered, I think, 7 full-time commissioners and 2 or 3 interim guys as well. And they've all basically been shown the door for the same bottom line reason. It didn't generate enough revenue for the teams. And I think, there's an interesting point for the league. Do you want to bring in another commissioner and in 5 years be showing him the door because he couldn't pedal your bicycle faster than the last guy? Or do you want a new bicycle? And by new bicycle, that's when we get into the conversation about, fundamentally changing the league and what that might mean and how that might happen.
All right, so let's do this. And then we got Tim and Cliffy, standing by. You talk St. Louis, right? We've seen the XFL, one of the really only, I would say, successes. And it's funny that we talk now about the XFL, CFL talks, and my thoughts on the league and ownership versus now. But I was much higher on things then, and pretty disappointed right now. But we've seen that captivated audience in St. Louis, and you're a proponent of at least exploring that, figuring out maybe do we move a CFL team there. Just thoughts on that here. I don't think that they will immediately adopt a 3-down game, and you can't just plug and play like they did back in the day. But thoughts on that?
I'm one of the few journalists here who lived through the U.S. expansion era. Mm-hmm. In fact, my kids exist because of the U.S. expansion era. I met their mom in an airport on my way to a Memphis Mad Dogs Birmingham Barracudas game. I always tell my kids, you should be really grateful for the U.S. expansion era. Without it, you wouldn't exist. There were a lot of interesting lessons about that, and I think I got to put some context on the U.S. expansion era of the early mid-90s. It was driven completely by crisis. They never would have done it the way they did it if they weren't running for their lives. And you can talk to people like Larry Smith and John Torrey who can walk you through some of the risks they took and some of the things they ignored because, the check cleared, man. That was where the league was living. So first thing, I think, if you were going to expand to the U.S., the time to do it is when you're not in a crisis, when you don't have owners around the board of governors saying, I'm out of this league in a year, we can't think. And you're not, so I think, you can do it more by design and strategically than with, trying to outrun the Grim Reaper, which is what they were doing in the early 90s. And Baltimore was unique. Baltimore had a huge anger in the National Football League. And I think it's reflective of what is in St. Louis now. And, when Baltimore had an opportunity, they were selling season tickets out of the gate. In fact, they had a thing at one time called the Indy Challenge, where they were trying to get their season ticket number over the Indianapolis Colts, the team that had left. I don't think they did it, but they probably generated some more season tickets just by people trying to get there. And you had people leaned in on it, and they basically said, that league left us, this league's serving us, and we don't care if it's 3-down football. We don't care if we're playing Saskatchewan. We're in. And again, I haven't been to St. Louis. I haven't talked to anybody. But I think if I was to answer the question, why is St. Louis so much more successful than all the other alternative football markets, it's because that spirit that existed in Baltimore in the early 90s exists in St. Louis. And Reed and I disagree on this. I think if they were part of the Canadian Football League, I think people are going to do what they did in Baltimore, want to show up and cheer for their football team and cheer professional football and don't care if you punt on 3rd down or if, there's a rouge or a no yards penalty. I think the league needs to do a better job of educating us American fans if it ever goes down that road. But it came out on a radio interview one day. Someone said, the UFL might not play after 2025. And I just said, if I was the CFL, I would try and pick off St. Louis as a 10 team. And the other issue that's going to come up is competitive. You can't mandate Canadian players. But look, 30 years ago, you had to have 10 Canadian starters. And the teams, for the most part, held their own. Now it's 7. And I think we all know the quality of those 7 compared to the quality of those 10, compared to the generation. I don't think you'd necessarily have a competitive issue with that. No.
Well, Dave, I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the patience.
This is an annual, Reed. This is an annual, right?
It's good. Yeah, Dave stopped by here. We were texting. We got everything going. I appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for spending the time. We'll see you later.
Hey, thanks very much. And hey, it's see you next Grey Cup in Winnipeg, but we'll be DMing.
I'm sure. Yeah, we'll be going through. We'll talk St. Louis. When the UFL collapses in June, I'm sure we'll talk through. All right, let's get Tim and Cliffy in here. Who wants to hop off for this one real quick? Okay. We'll get Jason out. Andy's on. We're doing the line change here. Tim and Cliffy are dabbing up the Naylor. Like I said, guys, like and subscribe. We got Tim and Cliffy coming on. Brian Scott's coming on. I think we got Matt Baker, and then Dorothy will close out. I see Jim walking by too. Let's get Jim in a minute. He's coming over like he's coming on. Jim's got to wait a minute, but let's get them on here. Let's get them on. We're chatting with Dave Naylor. Anyway, like and subscribe. Join the channel. Let's do all the good things here. Come on in, fellas. We got Cliffy here. We got Tim Capper. You can use that. I'll hold Tim's for him. Tim, come on here. Get on there. Yeah, Tim. Now, welcome, gentlemen. The Alouettes FlightDeck podcast. We're here. We were really, give him a handshake. You left him hanging there.
Shake my hand. The joke we always say is shake my hand, right? The guy on the airplane.
Yeah, I want to shake.
I want to shake your hand. Good to have you.
We really were hoping for a Montreal BC Grey Cup. Really would have just combined all of our forces. We are both SOL here. What are your thoughts on this? And in Toronto, kind of the big upset in the game and the crazy playoffs.
I don't know. Yes, we can call it an upset, I guess. I am kind of biased, though, but I mean, it's just that I look at the result of the game based off what happened. Is that it's more that Montreal gave them the game than Toronto winning the game, in my opinion. But I mean, it is what it is. Toronto's here at the Grey Cup, and Winnipeg's here at the Grey Cup. So I mean, there's not much really more I can say about it. It's just it's disappointing. It really is.
That's for you.
Absolutely. It really just the mistakes that were made in the first quarter, the fumbles, not just from Fajardo, but also Walter Fletcher as well, the giveaways. I mean, there's just Montreal just dug themselves a hole that they simply couldn't climb out of. They certainly tried like hell to do so, but they just weren't able to get past those mistakes. And hey, credit to Toronto. Despite Chad Kelly getting injured in a horrific way, Toronto still did what they had to do, and they got the W. So that's why they're here, and that's why the Alouettes are watching the game on TV.
I want to get your thoughts, the Cody, Davis, Alexander, Ryan, and obviously you guys track the team way more than I do, especially this year. I've just been out to lunch, admittedly, a lot, doing my best to kind of keep track of everything. But what's going on there? It feels like it's too much of a good thing. I'm just curious your thoughts on that and what's going to happen.
I've already said it multiple times, and would have been here at Grey Cup or on the pod this past week. I never expected to have a quarterback controversy on my bingo card for the Alouettes in the offseason. It's going to be very interesting, and especially for those who happen to watch the Alouettes post-game state of their press conference at the end of the year. Just the answers alone coming from Danny Mack and from Jason Moss seem, in my opinion, to be very telling. Davis Alexander, to me, whether he was brought, even though he's not a Canadian kid, he's still a homegrown talent, in my opinion, because of how he was brought in by Danny Mack, and he's waited his time. And as you've seen, in the 4+ games that he started this year, even though 4 wins and then 1 in relief, the guy really deserves a shot. How this is going to play out this offseason, it's going to be very interesting. It's very curious to see what type of decisions that they make, whether they keep one or they get rid of one and then we sign another. But that will be one of the storylines for the offseason.
Curious your thoughts.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting situation. Even if you go by the body language and the answers to the questions from both Cody Fajardo and from Davis Alexander, they both want to be the man. And Davis Alexander has proven that he can be a starter in this league and win games in this league. Cody Fajardo obviously brought a Grey Cup to the Alouettes, so, I mean, he definitely deserves that consideration as well. So just based on that alone, I don't know if you could really do like a 1A, 1B situation to have them live harmoniously together. It really does sound like both of them want to be the man in Montreal. And it's going to come down to a simple matter of, okay, who are the Alouettes, the organization, like Danny Machocha, Jason Moss, who are they going to go with? Are they going to go with the guy that brought them the Grey Cup, or the guy that they've basically nurtured from day one to eventually be the future in Montreal and Davis Alexander? It's going to be a very, very interesting offseason. There's no doubt about that.
I'm going to let you ask a question. I'm going to tuck out here real quick before we do our home stretch here, run them out. So why don't you give a question? I'll let you guys respond. I'll pop right back in.
Yeah, as you guys alluded to, Davis Alexander was obviously the best kept secret in Montreal, and you guys were on him before anybody else was. But as you also mentioned, Fajardo has clearly proven himself. He's won a Grey Cup. He's almost kind of in a way that it seems to me, at least from my perspective, he's the spiritual leader in a lot of ways because of his attitude, his camaraderie, the way he presents himself. Do you think that gives him more currency in staying around, or do you think at the end of the day that Montreal might be okay with cutting their ties in that way? Because you said Davis Alexander is the product of the team.
That's it. And when you talk about the future of the Alouettes, that's the direction you have to be looking in. And again, I don't want to take anything away from what Cody Fajardo's done. I mean, he's proven himself. I mean, he's shown the love to Montreal, and Montreal has shown love back to him. Getting that Grey Cup win definitely has cemented him among those quarterbacks, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it was just the 1 year, but still, for what he was able to do, and that warrior mentality that he has, definitely speaks volumes. And people do love Cody Fajardo in Montreal. There's no two ways about it. But what Davis Alexander was able to do this year, stepping into relief when Cody got hurt, and performed admirably. I mean, arguably you could say 5-0 as a starter. And the team rallied behind Davis Alexander too. When Caleb Evans came in relief for Cody Fajardo the first time, he didn't exactly have that same oomph that Davis Alexander did when he stepped in against Saskatchewan, won the game there, and just kept on going. And also to the body language too for Davis Alexander when he was watching that Eastern final. Like, you could tell, like, in his mind, he's like, I should be out there. That's got to be me doing that. And that too, I think, maybe has played a lot into how he feels and how he sees things going forward. Like, he basically said, I got to see how the rest of this league shapes out. Like, once free agency gets underway and what's out there for me. And I don't blame him 100%. Like, you got to take care of you. I mean, as much as all we'd love to have Davis here, and I think deep down, the Alouettes organization wants to do whatever they can to keep Davis Alexander in red and blue, but ultimately it's going to come down to what happens in free agency. Like, a lot of dominoes are going to be falling once the Grey Cup gets handed out, but it's definitely going to make for a very, very interesting offseason.
Thoughts on the game here? We'll sneak in Jim before I think Brian Scott's coming here in a minute. We'll pile in here at the end. The thoughts on the game? Who do you got?
Even though, from the East, it's like, do I want to choose the Argos to win and stuff like that? I mean, it's like, I'm kind of going into the game as a go team CFL type of thing. Because
I just hope both teams have fun.
Yeah, exactly. I hope nobody gets hurt. I'm curious to see what type of game this is going to be. Which Toronto team are we going to get? I mean, as I said earlier, is that I don't think Toronto won the game as much as they were given the game. Toronto, even though the Owls had 6 turnovers, they only lost by 2. So I think it really goes to show, was it the Owls that gave the Argos the game? But they did. But in my opinion, I could be totally wrong. But just by looking at the line itself, and I know the line can be very misleading, I honestly think Winnipeg is not. I don't think it's going to be even close. I think Winnipeg is just going to win this game going away.
Again, you're talking about both teams that basically came in hot, like really hot at the right time. I mean, you can make the argument that both Winnipeg and Toronto did what they had to do to get to this game, so both have I'd say an equal chance. But not having Chad Kelly in the lineup is definitely going to make a big factor. There's no question about that. I mean, they always say go with the most experienced quarterback, and Zach Collaros easily has a lot more experience than what Nick Arbuckle does. I definitely think it'll be a good game no matter what, but I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't see how Winnipeg loses this game, but we also maybe said that a little bit last year and the year before. Like, anytime Winnipeg's in the game, they absolutely have a fighting chance, but I think a lot of pressure is on them too because all this talk about dynasty with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They won their first 2 Grey Cup games, in this time period. Then they lost the last 2 Grey Cup games. So now the pressure's on. If you really want to be considered a dynasty, you got to win on Sunday.
Go one more here. I'm texting Brian Scott here directions. Give one more question for them. We'll bring in Jim Mullin.
Well, to that too, because at least, again, from my perspective last year, I think you guys We're probably definitely not favored in that game, and I think it was wonderful to see someone like Fajardo really transcend and step up in such a crucial moment. Who does that player have to be for Toronto if they want to have a chance of winning this game?
I'm going to say Kadeem Carey. I think he's proven himself to be a true leader on this Argos team. I mean, Chad Kelly would obviously be the guy, but I mean, Kadeem Carey, Winton McManus, those are two guys that I look at as their leaders. Like, those are the guys that are going to pick the guys up by their pads and say, hey, let's go. This is a championship game. It's win or go home. I fully expect those guys to be the ones that are going to rally the troops and light that fire underneath everybody. So if you were to ask me, I'd say either Carey or McManus as far as the go-to guys to really fire everybody up.
No, I actually was going to say the exact same thing. I think it will come down to a couple of things. I think if Toronto's able to really control the running game, I mean, they're great on the Winnipeg side, obviously, too. But as we've seen, especially last week versus the Alouettes, the special teams can make a huge difference. And I would not be surprised if Toronto's special teams makes a huge statement and keeps them in this game.
That's true. They got Liram Hairulahu kicking field goals, Janarian Grant returning kicks as well. I mean, special teams could play a very big factor for Toronto.
Oh, Janarian Grant's like Devin Hester of the CFL. I mean, why do teams even bother kicking it to him? Like anybody. It really blows my mind. He's incredible. It really is.
He absolutely is. And it's kind of funny, too. He's also got a little bit of motivation as well, considering he's a former Winnipeg Blue Bomber. And now he's facing his former team for the championship. I mean, he's already got a Grey Cup ring with the Blue Bombers, but now he has a chance to add one as an Argonaut, just as a reminder, like, hey, I used to be with you guys, and now I'm here to beat you. So if that doesn't motivate you, if you're a player that doesn't motivate you as well, then I don't have to tell you.
All right, let's do the swap here. Let's bring in Jim. Jason can come back on. Brian's texting these somewhere. We'll get it going. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. There we go. Thanks, guys. Jim, Cliffy, Alouettes, FlightDeck. We're texting guests here. Like and subscribe. Be a part of the adventure. We'll see you guys. I appreciate it. Let's get Jason in. Let's get Jim in. We got a longtime friend. He's been sitting around here, and then we'll get Bryan on. We'll get Matt. We'll get Dorothy, and then we'll get out of here. Should be good. Jason's back. Jim Mullin's here. Jim, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, we're doing video. Look, Pace Advertise. That's where I'm going. New vice president of IFAF.
That's good. Talk about how busy you are right now.
I am very busy. Not only with the IFAF, but of course we have Gridiron Nation on TSN. It's on every Thursday and Friday in the afternoons. It's all about college football and how it relates to Canadians in college football, whether we are talking about youth sports or whether we are talking about Canadians in the NCAA. And Nathan's little brother has given us some great stuff to talk about this year.
I'm curious your thoughts, obviously Vancouver here and everything else. Thoughts on the Lions season and not being here?
A tremendous disappointment, especially after the start. I'm glad to hear through the rumor mill that there are changes coming to the Lions front office. If we are to believe those rumors, and why not? There's a good escape plan for Coach Campbell if he chooses it to Edmonton. Looks like they're trying to put the band back together in Edmonton from the 1970s and 1980s, and he's the scion of that. Of course, Hugh Campbell winning 5 Grey Cups with the Eskimos back in the day. So Ryan Rigmaiden is if he steps up as the general manager, I believe that is a healthy upgrade in this organization. And they're talking about reconfiguration. Then who steps up as the head coach? If you look at CFL teams these days, guys, with guys that are coaches and general managers, it's too much for one guy. And it's not just the amount of work that's involved for one guy, but it's the relationships that you have in the dressing room. You cannot be a player's coach and then as soon as that season ends, turn around and then start to negotiate with these guys or start to cut them before their bonuses cut in. You can't balance the two. Either you got to be a black hat through and through, and that's hard to do with the modern athlete, or you got to separate the jobs. So if the Lions are separating the jobs, I think they're doing the right move here.
Go for it. I was going to say on that note, I know the season didn't go the way that the BC Lions expected, but how have you felt about the overall presentation here in Vancouver?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's a giant upgrade from the last days of the David Braley era. There was management that needed to go on with the estate. They were working on a fairly small budget. We understand all of those things. But Amar understands sizzle, but he also understands steak. He understands that you need to, beyond the presentation, you need to do the things in the community that build the football community. We're about 570 days after SFU imploded their program up on Burnaby Mountain. He's still there, making proclamations that we're bringing this thing back. He's still there with $500,000 to put into the program, right? He's still there supporting all those things in the grassroots community. And the one thing that I saw in the last Lions game that I was at was a lot of kids in the stands, and a lot of kids in the stands wearing minor football jerseys. And that's part of the evolution that needs to go on with a team in a league that is completely gate-driven outside of your salary cap being covered by your TV deal.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the Canadian content in the CFL. Now, I believe I saw that this is the first time we've ever had the leading rusher and receiver be Canadian. Can you speak about the importance of Canadian content in the CFL right now?
Well, you know what? It's not just Canadian content in the CFL, it's Canadian content in football. When you take a look at some of the leading performers in the NFL, whether you're looking at a guy like Chase Brown with Cincinnati, whether you're looking at John Mechie in Houston. I mean, I could start going down the list. Mm-hmm. There is a long, Chuba Hubbard is having a great season this year.
Oh, I dropped him off my fantasy team. It's the biggest regret I made so far.
Well, look, you know, I mentioned Nathan's little brother, not so little brother, Curtis Rourke. Mm-hmm. I first met Curtis when we were handing out the Cornish Trophy to Nathan, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's this larger version of Nathan as a teenager with this big geeky smile. Hi, my name is Curtis, and he's shaking my hand. Like you could tell that he had the frame that Nathan didn't have, right? And that he had to grow into it. You know, watching his development at Ohio, and then watching him turn into what he has turned into with this 10-0 Indiana team, that's another testament to Canadian talent. And even more so than Nathan, he spent his senior year in Canada playing high school football in Canada at a Catholic school in Toronto. So unlike going through an academy process that a lot of Canadians do these days, leaving home in grade 10 or grade 11, this is a kid that, even though he did spend some time in the States, came back to Canada, was the MAC Player of the Year, and now has probably upgraded enough through that system in Indiana where he is going to be a late round draft pick, right? That's where we are in skilled positions with Canadians. One of the conundrums for the CFL, though, is all the best Canadians are playing in the NFL. That never used to happen before. We'd have about 4 or 5 or a dual passport holder or something like that. There's, I think the number is up to 23. It might be around 24 that are on NFL rosters right now. And so that then has an impact on the rosters in the Canadian Football League. But as you guys point out, look at the top performers in the CFL. I still think that the ratio needs to exist, though, because there are guys that didn't get exposure to coaching, that didn't get exposure to training, that need to get in those first 2 years. Brady Oliveira is a good example of that, even though he played at North Dakota. I went down and saw him play in North Dakota as a sophomore, a guy that was quick, a guy that had trained hard, a guy that hit holes with purpose, but he didn't have that patience. He didn't have that step. He didn't have those moves. He didn't give those half hits up to defenders. That's something that he needed to learn in his first couple of years in the CFL, and that comes with that pro level of coaching. So I think that's what you're seeing with this group of Canadians in the CFL.
I got one more question. We'll bring in Brian Scott. We got him standing by. Just curious your thoughts going back to Nathan and the Lions here. Obviously not the ideal situation coming in, and we've talked a lot today about Bryan and everything. Is it enough for him to reset in the offseason, coming in here halfway through and all that? What do you make of his future? Because the Lions have made a huge investment and commitment to him.
Oh, you and I had a side conversation about this, sending messages back and forth when he was available, right? And you know what my perception was at the time he should still try to find another NFL camp, run that thing out, and then come in fresh to a CFL camp. The opportunity was there for the Lions to grab Nathan, sign him to a contract in a Grey Cup year. I don't blame them for trying, but I think in terms of the football process, he'd been with too many teams and too many situations, and the kid's brain was fried, quite frankly. He had actually shown something better than what the record indicated, too. He was pulled out of a game at halftime after putting together a convincing drive, a total head-scratcher, in my opinion. I think he was great between the 20s. Right, as soon as he got into the red zone or had his back to the goalpost, he was prone to mistakes with that offense. And plus, that pass protection was just awful this year with the Lions team, and they didn't take advantage of William Stanback. But in terms of having him here, why would you not want to have him here? Nothing against VA. You know I love VA. You know I love VA and what he brings, and I love what his evolution has been as a person and as a quarterback, and as he approaches the game. But when it comes to Nathan, you got star power there. You got 2022. He's going to put 2022 back on the field again. And he's going to have a brother in the NFL, and that's going to bring star power into the stands. Why would you not have that? That's where that marketing money that they're paying him on top of his salary kicks in, right? When Curtis Rourke is third or fourth in Heisman voting, when he gets drafted into the NFL, when he shows up with the family, when he brings teammates with him, that just amplifies what Nathan Rourke is doing on the field. And that's what people go for. You got to have this guy in this town, and you got to have a guy in this town that says, I want to be here. And that's what he's saying.
Well, Jim, I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging around here, waiting and making the time. Thanks, guys. We'll bring in Bryan Scott here coming up next. And, I hope Mr. Personality, I hope he does more interviews next year, Nathan Rourke. We'll see. It wasn't the best at homecoming here.
A little snappy. By the way, when you get into arguments with Dorothy, she's wearing the Huskies uniform. Do you have to bow down to Washington?
That's good. Let's bring in Bryan Scott here, a Toronto Argos quarterback. Our listeners will know him from the Spring League, the USFL, everything else. Bryan Scott, what's up, brother? It's only been 3 years. We got the grid back. We got Andy here. We got Jason.
What's up, brother? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, man.
Bryan, it has been a crazy year for you. How are you doing?
Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, we're live. Everything's good, man. Nice to finally meet you. Yeah, props to you, man. Known you for a long time. Just fortunate to be here with you. So, yeah.
What's it been? You're here. You got brought back. You're with the Argos. Go with Bombers. Come back here. What's going on here? How are you feeling? And what's going on in your life?
Everything's good. I'm extremely happy and fortunate to be here. My parents are here, so just taking in every day, all the little moments that I get to spend with my teammates, and just happy to represent Toronto and the city. Just super grateful to be here.
Mm-hmm. Just curious thoughts here today. I mean, we've tracked you all the way through everything and been a part of the show since the beginning. I mean, being here now, on the roster of a Grey Cup team and being in the CFL now and kind of experience all that. What's it been like?
It's been good, man. As you know, just playing in the Spring League since 2018 and the USFL, which the Spring League kind of turned into the USFL. It's been good, man. It's been an adjustment. I've never known anything but being a starting quarterback like my entire life. And then coming up to CFL, like adjusting to that role. But I think everybody does that, like Vernon does that, McLeod did that. I mean, pretty much every starting quarterback up here kind of goes through that period of their career. So I'm just taking it in and embracing every step and just doing whatever I can to help the team win. And, it's been good for me to take a step back and look at it from a different perspective, a different role. And yeah, I'm loving it.
Bryan, I had the pleasure of watching you 2 years ago in person in Birmingham, the opening game that you guys played, Stars versus the Breakers.
Yeah.
And I just remember just seeing you swing it around, despite the fact that a guy like Davin Bellamy was breathing down your neck every other snap.
That first play too, man.
Oh my goodness, that man is a monster. Yeah. But can you talk about what was it like getting that development, that professional football development from a guy like Bart Andrews and being in the USFL before coming here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, first of all, just thanks for coming to the game. watching me and supporting me. I appreciate that. But yeah, for me, it's been a journey, man. It's been a blessing just coming from a Division III school, and then playing in the 2018 Spring League against Johnny Manziel, who used to be my screensaver at one point. You know, I was in college as a true freshman. Johnny's my screensaver. Fast forward 4.5 years, I'm playing him, and we won the game. You know, and so it's been an incredible journey. I'm super grateful and blessed, and yeah. But I think the Spring League and the USFL really gave me that confidence that like I could do it, man, and I could do it at a professional level. It doesn't really matter who I'm going against, and just kind of gave me somewhat of a name just because I come from such a small school. You know, I had little tryouts in NFL camps and stuff, but just being able to go out there, play games, lead a professional team was awesome. Thanks for watching.
Of course.
Yeah, and yeah, I did get my helmet knocked off first day. But,
my goodness.
But I mean, USFL was an unbelievable experience for me. Just getting drafted in the first round, Fox Sports took really good care of me, and having the jersey in the Hall of Fame and the football, like that was something brought my family to tears. So it's one of those things that I'm just always going to be grateful for.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Bryan. Yeah, absolutely, from Hamilton.
Jamal Peters, that's my guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's a great player for us. My question is, what are your overall thoughts on coming up to here in the CFL? What did you know about the CFL prior to coming up here, and what are your impressions of Canada as a whole?
Yeah, so I signed up here in 2019 to play for Edmonton. Brock Sunderland, who's now kind of a good friend of mine, tried to get me to come up and introduce me to CFL. And then COVID happened, so I had to opt out of my contract and then played in the Spring League. But, dude, I can't say enough good things about the league. And it's been really nice for me, Reed, as you know, we were the Philadelphia Stars, but we were at Birmingham. Or I was on the Generals, and we didn't have a city. So for me to just be a part of a city like Toronto and get to, meet people at the games and to go to restaurants and go to certain places and make relationships with real people within that city has been really cool for me. So it's been an amazing ride for me here in Toronto.
I got two here. So we talked a lot. We had Dave Naylor on earlier, and he's been on the show back years ago talking USFL and all this. And it's almost like the CFL, they want to make it hard for Americans to come up, right? Especially quarterbacks, and it's really this learning process, and it's their game, and they protect all that, and we have all of our, I have many thoughts on that, but just curious that coming in, and especially as a quarterback and trying to learn all that, did you feel that? I mean, it's okay to say, or not, I don't want to get, but it almost feels like you got to kind of go through that rites of passage.
Yeah, you're not lying. You kind of got to earn your stripes, right? And that's how they kind of protect the game up here, and I respect that. I think everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that, and like I said before, it's been a great process for me to kind of have that role of not having to be the guy, not having all that pressure all the time, and kind of see how I want to do things when I do get that opportunity again, and kind of take the bull by its horns and go for it. But yeah, Dave Naylor is a good dude too. So
I got to follow up. What do you got, Andy? I got one more.
What I find so fascinating, last week, obviously, a bit tumultuous for Toronto, obviously, with Chad being in the game, getting hurt, unfortunately, and then Nick coming in. But I was wondering, was there anything that you were able to kind of tell them or impart to them? Because you played Montreal over the season, and you absolutely ripped against them for a few minutes. In fact, probably played some of the best quarterback against them in the entire year. Was there something that you were able to kind of impart to them or let them know about what to look for when you were out there as far as against that defense? Because Montreal's defense is obviously very legit.
Yeah, not really, man. I think most importantly, we just go through our rules at quarterback, and whatever the defense gives us, we're going to take it. And appreciate you saying that. I mean, like you said, Reed, the CFL game is so much different, right? And I think the biggest thing from a quarterback perspective is only having 3 downs instead of 4. It totally changes your deal. And with Coach Bart Andrus, as you mentioned before, he just kind of let me go out there and spin it, man. God bless him. I was throwing it 35, 40 times a game. And he just said, hey, here's the plane, you fly it. And, we had a lot of success doing that. So he trusted me with that. So, but yeah, it's been good. We're just going out there prepared and doing what we do and, hope for a good result.
I got a couple of quick USFL Spring League stuff for. We'll let you go, and then we'll bring out. We're rounding the show out here pretty quick. They were doing the USFL. We had the United by Football, right? Behind the scenes and all that. And there was one of the episodes, and I kind of equated it to you're on Survivor or Big Brother, and you kind of get in trouble, and you got to call a house meeting almost, and you had the house, right? The players and people, because they were all living, and you could kind of get your own. and you're bringing in the wide receivers and all that. It was a really just entertaining episode of like reality TV to watch, right? And obviously they spin it whatever way. Just curious, what was it like just being a part of that and then like living it? And then I don't know if you watched the show, just because that's another side you don't normally get, right? Especially like even in the CFL right now.
Yeah, I think that was kind of cool, right? Because we were all in one hotel. But yeah, it was called United by Football, right?
Yeah, right.
It was.
I remember the commercial.
It's like a fever dream now.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that was really cool for me, Reed, because we had that Generals Championship team in 2020, and I didn't play in the Spring League 2021. I was doing a couple NFL workouts. I didn't want to play in it. But here comes 2022, and I told those guys, you know what? Like, if I'm going to come back and play, like, I want all you guys, as many as you guys as possible, to kind of get back on that team. And when we were playing, you guys called us the Spring League All-Stars. I don't know if you remember that, but we had a bunch of the guys from the Spring League who had success. So for me, I think one of the greatest joys in that entire process was being able to grab some of those guys from the Generals team, and Mark just trusted me to say, hey, like, this guy's good, and let's bring these guys who might be done with football that want to get another shot at it, playing on a big stage. So I take it like Jordan Sewell and Colburn was done playing, and Jordan Moore, and a lot of those guys that are my good buddies to this day. But yeah, that episode was cool. I mean, it was like, of course they kind of spun it a certain way, but yeah, the USFL, like, it was a great experience for me. I can't say enough good things about the league and Fox Sports and stuff. So
last one for me, and if you guys have anything, we'll bring on Matt. Love Bryan Woods, right? And we all love Bryan and everything. And I've joked a lot on the podcast, like, he basically put together the Spring League like with cardboard in his garage, right? We were at a football league off of that. Just like thoughts now, looking back, and obviously everything now with the USFL and how they've expanded all the different things, but just we're really all started from that brain trust and just kind of him figuring it out. And I think you could have, we've talked a lot out here, you could have elevated the Spring League and kind of done that in a way versus everything they did with the USFL. And that's a whole different story. But just thoughts on coming from that and just the experience and kind of what that was like.
Well, you're not going to hear me say anything bad about that, because without that, I don't know where I'd be at. But I think it's kind of cool. I tell guys this, like, if you look at the UFL now or the USFL, XFL, I feel like I was there, like, Old Testament. It's like now it's the New Testament. I was there, like, when they were trying to put together a spring football league, right? And there was a lot of talent. I remember in 2018, Reed, when I was there with Johnny, we had ESPN there every day. And we had 30 scouts, NFL scouts on the field every day. So it went from that to turning into like more of a TV promotion deal instead of guys just getting scouted and going straight to camps, right? So I saw it kind of transform. And then in 2020, it was on Fox, right, where we met. But it's been cool. And then, I did the USFL and I jumped to the XFL. And the only reason I did that was strictly, financially for my family, And it was one of those things where I really didn't want to. But it was just like I had reached the age where I needed to start kind of putting that into perspective, like, hey, like, I got to do this for a living, right? I played in the Spring League twice for no money, trying to just put myself out there. But so I made that jump, and then now I'm here in Toronto, and it's been a great learning thing for me here in CFL. So definitely loving my experience, and we'll see what happens.
Anything else, Andy? We'll let Bryan get out of here.
What's been your favorite part of the Grey Cup festivities so far?
Gosh, dude, I haven't even had very much time. We've been so busy with meetings. Probably sitting here with you guys.
What's the locker room?
Old memories a little bit, going through the journey. And I've never met this guy. I was there when he was doing like a little one in his house, and just seeing him kind of flourish and being at the Grey Cup. It's been cool to be a part of your journey too, man. I appreciate you, following you, and just I feel like I'm a part of the spring football.
You are.
For the rest of my time and career. And I owe a lot of my success and just getting my name out there to guys like you guys, and just people that kind of stuck with me, supported me, and saw me on a smaller stage and said, hey, this guy can play, And John Murphy, I owe him a lot. He kind of paid attention to those leagues, and he paid attention to guys like you and said, hey, Bryan Scott can play, and now here I am, So making a living and supporting my family and stuff like that. So just appreciate you and appreciate all the people that supported me along the way. It really means a lot.
Last one. What's the locker room mentality like right now? I mean, a lot of practices and walkthroughs and everything. What's the team feeling like?
We're locked in, man. I mean, guys are excited. I think why I like Toronto so much is I've built such amazing relationships with these guys on and off the field. Like I said, I wasn't the starting quarterback, right? So I kind of got to do some things with the guys that I don't have to be like that force of, hey, guys, we got to run this route at this depth. I'm like, hey, let's go, bowling, or like let's go do something fun together. So part of that's been really cool for my growth as a football player, and I wanted to forget this time period. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Bryan, I appreciate it, man. God bless.
Guys,
Appreciate it. That's good. Let's bring in Matt here, and then we'll round it out here in the minute. We got Dorothy.
Absolutely.
Longtime friend of the show, Bryan Scott. You know you have a fan in us forever. Here we go, and then we got Dorothy's. Oh, yeah. All right, let's bring in Matt. Last one here, rounding out. Then we'll bring in Dorothy. Close the show as always. Matt, could be a busy week here. Every time I see you, you're kind of hanging out, but that's good. What's the week been like for you, Matt, with the Lions?
It's been a nice balance, I'd say, Reed, and good to see you guys as well. As you know, here at Radio Row for pretty much the last 3 days, taking care of Moj and Julio and our Punjabi broadcast team, helping the festival, kind of an all hands on deck week. So just kind of being around and being seen and interacting with fans and getting the Lions Den. Yeah, it's been a good balance of work and fun. So
I think there was a lot of expectations when BC got awarded the Grey Cup, obviously with the Mar and everything. Everyone we talked to, Dorothy, that's been to 4 Grey Cups, walked yesterday, was just in awe, especially even up here. And she was talking about the outreach and the marketplaces and the indigenous sales, kind of all this other stuff. How do you feel that you're kind of living up? Because I think it was high expectations going in.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny. The cycle of this whole thing has kind of been awarded this game in November of 2022, the week the Lions beat Calgary in the Western Semi. Go fall short in Winnipeg the next week, but that's okay. We're coming. We're on the rise. Same script last year. So I say, okay, this year we're going to get the Western Final at home and stay here for the Grey Cup. But, we can do a whole other 2-hour stream on what went wrong this season. But I will say, once you kind of come out of that, once you sort of get over the hump and see firsthand how this festival is, all the concerts. I saw 5440 last night. Canadian rock and roll royalty for me anyway. Reed's just like, I should have invited you to the gala dinner next time.
I realized we could have gone. I was looking at my thing. I'm like, I actually could have gone to that. I was not dressed. I don't think my Kraken jersey.
I think I specifically approve your credential to include it. So anyway, you're hanging out with all the big shots at the FRC suite. So, but before this gets too off the rails, you really have to learn to separate it. Yeah, I can't sugarcoat it. It sucks that I'm not more busy this week, but the special aspect of the Grey Cup Festival, it's still great for me, and you can't top it.
What's been the most exciting part of this festival so far, and also setting up for it?
It's hard to pick just one. Like I said, concert series, just seeing the fans, just seeing everyone come together for me, and seeing a lot of the great Lions fans that we only know by their X and Instagram handles. It's nice to see that the real people are still here, and seeing all the alumni. That's big for me. Like seeing the likes of Paul McCallum, G. Roy Simon hanging around the Lions Den. That's a very good part.
Well, I was telling him, I was trying to twist his arm to get us a zip line to come down to our studio. I mean, this is impressive having the zip lines around the whole place.
Haven't done it yet, but the lineup for that's been packed the whole week. So, and when we were in the other convention center building back in late February, I want to say, when they announced the kickoff of the festival, what it was going to be, and the zip line was the big hook. People have been talking about the zip line
for the whole time. That's all. That's what I was telling Dorothy.
But for 9 months since this was first sort of brought together, and it's paid off because, like I was saying, it's lined up around the corner.
Jason, you got anything?
Yeah, for sure. So your colleague Carolyn Cody won an award at the CFL Awards. Can you speak about her contributions to all this and what she's meant to the organization?
Yeah, Carolyn's brilliant. She's got to be like an 11-year employee now, and a neat story. Kind of started in an entry-level position and has worked her way up. All this talk about the Lions brand being bolstered under Amar Dolman and, of course, Dwayne Bonneau, our president. Her fingerprints are all over that. When it comes to the digital marketing, the game day presentation, which Reed has seen firsthand, she's all over that, and she bleeds the colors. as well. That's not always the case with people in these type of positions, but the Jane Mobby Award, that was a real highlight of the week for me, seeing that. And of course, Amar getting the Commissioner's Award. So seeing everybody recognized for the work that's been done here. Carolyn's well deserving of that, absolutely.
Well, and what I liked about that was, and I caught part of it in the speech that got shared, it was either from the CFL account or the BC Lions, I can't remember, but talking about the empowering women to be in there and, to kind of grow that more in that way, which I think is super important as well.
Yeah, we have several women in key positions. Of course, history with Tanya Henderson, the first full-time female coaching staff member, just completed her third season, and she's sort of risen up now, assisting with, she has her own position group basically that she works with. And we've talked about Carolyn. I think of someone like an Arlene Stewart Irvine, very high up in the ticketing department. She's a 20-plus year employee. Carol Longmere she also won the Mobby Award in Hamilton in 2021, our director of finance. So broken a lot of barriers in that regard, and that's something we can be proud of.
I got one last one. You got anything?
Yeah, for sure. Who do you like in the game tomorrow?
Well, I can't make predictions right here. I won't do it for various reasons, but I would not count out the Toronto Argonauts. I just watching them, seeing them, it seems a little loose.
Well, they're playing because they don't have anything. I mean, not they don't have anything to play for, but they have the ability to play for it.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, hey, they're here for a 5th straight year, and they seem like they're on a mission the last half of this season. But I think it's going to be a close one, like it was 2 years ago in Regina. Are we going to see 2 blocked field goals in a span of 90 seconds again? I don't think so. But I expect this to be a good one. That's my prediction.
Last one for me. Obviously, we've seen the work done here with the Lions. We're going to Winnipeg next year, then to Calgary. Do you think that the extra work done here, is that going to raise the bar now for a lot of these other teams to go, hey, okay, we got to kind of keep this momentum going?
Absolutely. That's always kind of the goal when you host this event. And I'm sure Winnipeg is a really good Grey Cup city. I've not been to a Grey Cup in Winnipeg, but I've heard you'll see how much of a presence it is there. Smaller city, a little more tight in the downtown core. You're going to see Grey Cup stuff everywhere, but absolutely, I guarantee you the folks there and with the Stampeders are taking notes this week because this will be hard to top.
Well, Matt, I appreciate it. Thanks for you and Mike setting us up here at the McLaren Grills Radio Row.
Let me take the mic here. I just want to say I'm proud of the fact that you're still doing it. I know I always reference it. 2021 in Hamilton. Remember the Winston Churchill pub? Or what was the pub called?
George Hamilton.
George Hamilton. Yeah, Winston. Close. Dorothy was there, and I was there, and we were figuring out internet and all that stuff. But it's good to be on. Good to be a part of it. Always, my door's always open.
Yeah, a lot smoother this time around than the hotspot Wi-Fi in the corner of the bar and all that. So I appreciate it, Matt. We'll see you.
Thanks, boys. Thank you.
We'll see you at the Lions Den later. Let's bring Dorothy in. Last one here. Appreciate it, ma'am. And then the final star here. We're going to be out of here about 2 hours, 20 minutes. That'll be good. I think we did. I think Darren Bombing was messaging me. I did not see it. So that was the one. We got everyone else in. Look at that. We got everyone else in. Hope everyone enjoyed the stream. Like and subscribe. Dorothy, how are you?
Yeah, great. It's been busy. It's been really good. Beautiful day yesterday. We were walking around, and yeah, it's been good. Lots of guests today. It's good.
You remarked to me, unprovoked, kind of as we were walking around, how excited and amazed you were of kind of the outreach and community building and everything else going on here. What's your thoughts on the festival?
Yeah, I think it's been awesome. I mean, they're really involving lots of families. There's, like probably everyone said, zip lines and the climbing wall and everything. So I think it's really trying to get the younger set, tracking the CFL. So yeah, I think it's been good.
I'll turn this. Matt was like eating the microphone. I'll turn back up that level there. Andy, you got anything right out there? We're just ready. Anything else here? We're getting out of here soon, but then it's always good to get Dorothy on the stream.
Yeah. Dorothy, are you going to be getting on the slides anytime soon, or what's going on?
Maybe. I mean, it's looking pretty fun back there, so we'll see. Yeah, maybe.
Well, at one point when Naylor was on, some kid pulled one of those balls and it looked to me like that structure was going down, and I was like, so it was fine. It reinflated there, but.
Jamie Nye said that yesterday someone was kicking the football and it almost came right over here. Like hit the edge of the net and like almost.
That's what I thought when we first started the show. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. The camera's pointed this way. The bouncy houses, all yeah. There's field goal kicking. There's an indoor football field. There's basketball shooting and all sorts of stuff. Anything else? Any other thoughts here? We round out. We'll get out of here soon.
I would like to give a formal prediction, but
We should probably do that.
I
Now,
think
this
that
is the casual time of the year. Let's give our predictions.
we talked enough, haven't we? You know, as it goes, my initial reactions and thoughts usually change during the course of the week. Initially, when the Chad Kelly injuries happened, I thought, oh boy, there goes their chances, even if Toronto makes the game. Listen, I mean, this Toronto team has gone through a lot of adversity. They fought their butts off to really get here, and I cannot underestimate that coaching staff. I can't underestimate the talent in the locker room. I can't underestimate the fact that they did this despite losing all the players that they did last year. I give them a real chance in this game. I know this, if you're talking about betting spreads, 9 to 9.5, I think they absolutely cover that. Having said that, well, I do think there are going to be some mistakes made by Winnipeg. I don't think there's going to be as many as Montreal made. I think Toronto could take a halftime lead. I think Brady Oliveira is not only going to help Winnipeg win and complete their dynasty, I think he's going to become the 8th CFL player all time to win MOP and then win most outstanding player, MVP of the CFL Grey Cup. I really believe that. I think he's going to help drive the nail in the coffin in the fourth quarter. I think it's going to come down to Nick Arbuckle trying to save them at the end of the day, and I don't think he's going to have enough for this team because I think Winnipeg, they've had enough. They've lost 2 years in a row. They want to complete this dynasty. They want everybody to run off into the sunset and you know, click their heels. But I think this is their time. I think it's finally going to happen. I got to take Winnipeg in this game. I'm going to say by a score of 27 to 23.
Jason, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think that Toronto is a bad matchup for Winnipeg. We saw them win the season series against Winnipeg this year 2-0. And I think that they just always find a way to muck up the game, kind of similar to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, maybe they don't get the best quarterback play every week, but they always find a way to stay within the game. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do in this game. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play very good defense. I think it really comes down to the fact, can Jake Seresna and the boys up front really get pressure on Zach Collaros and really rattle him early in this game? I talked earlier in the show about how Collaros has generally struggled in Grey Cups. If they can really rattle him early, it could be a completely different ball game. But if Winnipeg can protect up front, I think there's big plays to be had against that Toronto secondary.
Dorothy, you're flying out early, missing the game. Dorothy, thankfully, helping wrangle all the guests and everything today. Here, obviously, you're rooting for Winnipeg here, your team.
Yeah, that's right. And didn't Kelly break his ankle? So.
Oh, that was really bad. That was very scary.
I'm not laughing at that, but yes, that is just, I don't know. So they got their backup in, right? So we'll see.
We'll see. Well, I appreciate everyone. Anything else from you guys? We'll get out of here. We've talked 2.5 hours.
Well, I guess my prediction is.
Oh, shit.
I'll go 23-19 Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring. I think Toronto's going to be. I like that when Bryan was talking to whoever, they have a lot less stress to play, right? I feel like the expectations. I do think teams are able to go out and play spoiler there a little bit. I see that a lot with hockey, where you have a team that comes in and it feels like they're able to play a lot more bully ball and free just because they don't have the. There's a lot more pressure on Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Like and subscribe. Like I said, hopefully we'll share this again tomorrow before the game, but I appreciate it as always. I think we did a good job. All right, we'll see everyone next time, and safe travels back. Dorothy's flying out tomorrow. We hope everyone gets home safe, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.